Chapter 2192. It was obvious that many of the major forces in the Bayou Nation were not optimistic about the sudden rise of the Black Rock Peak. Especially when they saw the opposing Medicine Manor and Clear Cloud Pavilion standing together on the city walls. Even the majority of the smaller forces did not think that the Black Rock Peak was a small force. The Black Rock Peak was enough to shake the Clear Cloud Pavilion. Old Man Qingyun and the Medicine King on the city wall sneered disdainfully at the sight of the huge flying serpent. Flying serpent, you were once the divine king of snakes. Don't you know that a wise man submits to circumstances? No matter how strong the mysterious race behind Demon Yi is, as long as they don't walk out of their cave, they won't be able to survive. As long as they don't have a true divine lord. Although the grotto heaven could devour the energy of the heavenly realm, it had a huge restriction. One could not break through to the divine lord level in the grotto heaven. It was the same as the earth realm, where one could not break through to the heavenly venerate level. This was also the reason why Old Man Qingyun and the Medicine King were so fearless. Not only that, the Medicine King even took the initiative to offer his surrender. Fellow Taoist Soaring Snake, we know that you're just like that dog Guasankai. Both of you were forced to submit to this demon Lord Yi, but we won't blame you. As long as you're willing to surrender and join our camp, not only will you not be implicated by Yi Fei, but you'll also be able to wait. Not long after, Bayun God Lord and the experts from Storm Hall will arrive from the Divine Prefecture. You will have the opportunity to enter the Divine Prefecture and join Storm Hall. The Medicine King's words were very tempting, at least in Qingyun City, when they heard that a major force from the Divine Prefecture was about to enter Qingzhou. Countless warriors were stirred up. That was the Divine Prefecture, a place that countless warriors yearned for. Hearing this, Yi Fei sneered. Flying Serpent, you should seriously consider the Medicine King's suggestion. His words were just a joke, but Flying Serpent's face turned pale. Flying Serpent knew that the death of Lin Chen and Lin Gui had a huge impact on Black Rock Peak and Yi Fei. Knowing that he would definitely infuriate Yi Fei if he didn't put on a good performance, the Soaring Serpent flew into a rage. As it reverted back to its human form, it charged towards Old Man Qingyun and the Medicine King. You two old dogs, shut up. Do you take me for a shameless snake that betrays its master? Kill. I will eat you. Boom. There was no room for a buffer. The battle between the Tao Lords broke out all of a sudden, causing an uproar among the various forces in Qingyun City. Then, Old Man Qingyun and the King of Medicine roared furiously, You ungrateful bastard! Since you're determined to die with Yi Fei, I'll fulfill your wish. Old Man Green Cloud charged into the sky and engaged in battle with the Soaring Serpent. The shockwaves from the battle between the two Tao Lords blew the clouds in the sky into smithereens. A rain of ice and blood fell from the sky. Ting Shi, who knew that he would infuriate Yi Fei if he didn't go all out, decided to fight Old Man Qingyun to the death right from the start. This battle between Tao Lords instantly turned into a battle of life and death. The Yao Wang, who was about to rush forward, was so scared that his legs started to turn to jelly. Yi Fei, have you gone mad? It was the Sky River royal family who attacked Black Rock Peak. Qingyun Pavilion and the King of Medicine Manor didn't do anything. What reason do you have to start an all-out war with us? The King of Medicine glared at Yi Fei furiously. Yi Fei's eyes turned cold at this moment. He shouted in a deep voice, Gao Sickle and Iron Hand, the Lord of Heaven, killed Lin Chen and forced Lin Gui to his death. This is my reason for starting an all-out war with you. I will definitely destroy the Sky River royal family, but I will also avenge Lin Chen and Lin Gui. Ah, avenge? You are just a few ants. That's right, I killed Lin Chen and Lin Gui, those two lowly commoners. But so what? Do you have the ability to charge into the city and take my life with just a few people? The figure of the Iron Hand, the Lord of Heaven, appeared on the city wall. Gao Sickle, however, didn't appear. Clearly, He was afraid of Yi Fei and didn't dare to show himself. However, it didn't matter if Gao's sickle appeared or not. After all, the Iron Hand, the Lord of Heaven, was the one who killed Lin Chen. Since the Iron Hand, the Lord of Heaven, was the culprit who killed Lin Chen, Yi Fei didn't hesitate at all. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, he lifted his foot and raised his sword. The black iron heavy sword was pointed straight at the throat of the Iron Hand, the Lord of Heaven. Behind him, Di Fan, Lu Qing, Zhao Qianjun, and Jiang Zhen all took a step forward at the same time. Suddenly, an extremely strong murderous and sorrowful aura appeared on their bodies. The death of Lin Chen and Lin Gui had completely enraged the Black Rock Peak, and everyone else. A debt of blood must be paid with blood. Crazy. This group of people is really crazy. Stop them. Don't let this group of lowly commoners get close to the city wall. The Iron Hand, the Lord of Heaven's proud face, suddenly stiffened. Due to their apprehension of the mysterious race behind Yi Fei, the Medicine King and Old Man Qin Yun didn't dare to attack Yi Fei personally. They also didn't dare to send out their subordinates, the Lord of Heaven. They were afraid that the mysterious race behind Yi Fei might be targeting them and their subordinates, the Lord of Heaven. However, even though the Lord of Heaven didn't dare to attack, the Medicine King Manor and Qingyun Pavilion had countless sovereigns. In order to stop Yi Fei, hundreds of sovereigns rushed out from the Medicine King Manor and Qingyun Pavilion's troops on the city wall. The Iron Hand, the Lord of Heaven, even issued a brazen order: other than Yi Fei, kill everyone else. Kill these rebellious lowly commoners for this monarch. In the Baiyun nation, Qingyun Pavilion was the uncrowned king, and anyone who angered Qingyun Pavilion was a traitor. The hundreds of sovereigns who heard the order immediately split into 5 small teams. Each team had dozens of sovereigns, and they surrounded Yi Fei and the others. Yi Fei didn't even look at these sovereigns. He just strode forward, heading toward Qingyun City and the Iron Hand, the Lord of Heaven. At the same time, a black turtle that was as fat as a ball suddenly popped out from his body. The moment it landed, it bounced off like a rubber ball. The sovereigns who were about to attack were dumbfounded. What is that? It's black and round. Is it a mutated ferocious boar? Who cares if it's a boar or something else? It's just a heavenly venerable realm demon. Attack together. Let's kill this black boar first. There were already sovereigns who couldn't hold back their killing intent and took the initiative to attack the dragon turtle. The dragon turtle immediately opened its mouth and spat out a gust of poisonous wind. The sovereigns' faces turned green as they screamed in terror and retreated. Oh no, this black boar is poisonous! Roar! The dragon turtle's reply was a furious roar. When the dragon turtle landed on the ground again, it was already a huge black mountain of flesh. It immediately crushed the poisoned juggernaut into the ground. The juggernaut's neck made a cracking sound as the dragon turtle's enormous body and weight crushed him, causing him to pass out from serious injuries. Chapter 2193. How dare a mere heavenly venerate black pig act so arrogantly? Die. The sovereign who had been attacked by the dragon turtle was enraged. Countless silver needles suddenly appeared in his hand. The silver needles rained down on the dragon turtle. Yi Fei's eyelids twitched. He was already considering whether he should intervene. However, the dragon turtle's next reaction stunned both Yi Fei and the ruler. Although the silver needles rained down on the dragon turtle's body, the dragon turtle's shell was so hard that even the ruler's silver needles couldn't pierce through it. What was even more amazing was that the fat behind the dragon turtle's shell actually produced a huge rebounding force when it was attacked. It actually repelled all the silver needles that were flying over with clanging sounds. Inside the beast mark space, Ling Siki, who was witnessing this for the first time, was completely stunned. Similarly, the ruler who had shot the silver needles was also stunned. Before he could even react, a gust of poisonous wind had already caused his face to turn green. His body stiffened as he fell to the ground. His legs were twitching slightly. After all, the dragon turtle's poison was the poison of a ruler's poison dragon. This poison was enough to allow a heavenly venerate like the dragon turtle to possess the power to resist a ruler. The reason Yi Fei had released the dragon turtle was to use its poisonous wind to create chaos. Boom! As the dragon turtle continued to roll and spit out poisonous wind, the sovereigns, who were originally charging down in an orderly manner, were suddenly thrown into disarray. They either held their breaths or activated their dark force to disperse the poisonous wind around them. At this moment, Di Fan and the others finally made their move. Kill. The first to make a move was Zhao Qianjun, the evil demon martial grandmaster. He was surrounded by boundless evil and demonic aura as he suddenly charged into the ranks of the chaotic rulers. The 5 lightning divine clock transformed into a ruler's evil thunder sword light that suddenly pierced the head of a ruler. That ruler clutched the evil sword tightly as he tried to burn his sky palace. His spirit. Unfortunately, his opponent was the evil demon sword monarch. Zhao Qianjuan's path was the same as the devil emperor's, which was the devouring Tao. When Zhao Qianjuan's sword stabbed into that person's body, a formless devouring power shattered his sky palace and devoured his soul. This caused the other sovereigns to look at Zhao Qianjun with deep fear in their eyes. No one dared to besiege the demonic Zhao Qianjun, and no one was willing to be poisoned by the poisonous black tortoise. Many sovereigns subconsciously targeted Di Fan. After all, Di Fan looked young and didn't have Zhao Qianjuan's terrifying aura. "Let go, all of you! This brat is mine. Watch how I cut him down." There was already an irascible ruler who was about to chop Di Fan in two with his enormous blade light. Di Fan's eyes suddenly emitted a purple light. This white-clothed war god only looked kind. However, the moment Di Fan unleashed his true power, a purple figure of the god of war appeared in the sky above Qingyun City. Then, this god of war held the Thunder Mountain in his hand. The vast and mighty purple aura turned into endless purple thunderbolts that tore the sky apart. At the same time, the thunderbolts that rushed towards Di Fan were also torn apart. The saber-wielding hegemon. On the city wall, the King of Medicine's eyelids twitched violently when he saw this scene. Vast and mighty purple aura. He's actually an innate saint. How could such a heaven-defying genius appear in the small black rock peak? There were innate saints in the heaven realm, but they only appeared once every 1,000 years. Their talent was even more terrifying than many powerful bloodlines. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that if the news of Di Fan being an innate saint spread, even the top 10 factions of the Divine Prefecture would personally rush over to recruit Di Fan. However, such a person stood behind Yi Fei and joined a small faction like the Black Rock Peak. While the King of Medicine was shocked, he couldn't help but look at Yi Fei with a doubtful gaze. Sensing the King of Medicine's gaze, Yi Fei didn't respond. His eyes were fixed on the iron hand of the Lord of Heaven on the city wall. In front of him was the scene of Lin Chen being nailed to the mountain rock by the spear. Yi Fei's heart was bleeding. Yi Fei's sword was trembling. Seeing the terrible performance of the sovereigns, the iron hand of the Lord of Heaven's face was ashen. He cursed loudly, "You bunch of good-for-nothings! You have a few hundred sovereigns. Can't you stop the 5 of them? All of you attack. Kill anyone who dares to retreat." Bang! The iron hand of the Lord of Heaven wasn't just saying that. As he spoke, he had already slain a sovereign of the Clear Cloud Pavilion who was cowering in fear. Such a ruthless method finally made the hesitant sovereigns go crazy. No one dared to retreat. Other than a few sovereigns who were still fighting with Zhao Qianjun, Di Fan, and the Dragon Turtle, the rest of the sovereigns swarmed toward Yi Fei. They wanted to use their advantage in numbers to stop Yi Fei from approaching the city wall. They wanted to stop him from approaching the iron hand of the Lord of Heaven. Yi Fei didn't say anything. Behind him, a sorrowful figure rushed out. Jiang Zhen made his move. What he used wasn't the 5 lightning's divine ability, but Lin Chen's most proficient divine spear fluttering snow. Lin Chen, Lin Gui, just watch. I, Jiangzhen, can't bring you back to life, but I can send these enemies to their deaths. All of you die. Jiangzhen roared. The sky was filled with wind and frost, and snow was everywhere. Jiangzhen's spear didn't have the elegance of snow, but it was filled with madness. Wherever the divine spear passed, the sovereigns would either be pierced through or killed by Jiangzhen's crazy spear. Lunatics, these people from Blackrock Peak are all lunatic. We can't afford to offend that demon, we can't afford to offend that white-robed youth, and now, we can't even afford to offend this remnant of the Divine Star Academy. Even though Clear Cloud Pavilion and Medicine Manor had sent out hundreds of sovereigns, just facing Jiangzhen and the other two was enough to make many of the sovereigns tremble in fear. Then, someone finally noticed Lu Qing, who was following behind Yi Fei, and their eyes lit up. Some of them couldn't hold themselves back and charged towards Lu Qing. In their minds, women were always weak, and Lu Qing, who had been following Yi Fei quietly and hadn't made a move, was undoubtedly the weakest. It was a pity that these sovereigns had chosen the wrong target. Facing the many sovereigns charging towards her, the quiet Lu Qing suddenly had countless lightning bolts appear on her body. Her lightning bloodline was completely ignited. Rolling lightning bolts tore the sky apart and formed a huge thundercloud. Boom! This thundercloud enveloped more than 10 sovereigns and released endless lightning bolts. In an instant, these sovereigns were all turned into charcoal. On the city wall, the various factions of the Baiyun nation couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. The strength of Blackrock Peak was completely beyond their imagination. Chapter 2194. All the factions in Qingyun City were in an uproar. Hundreds of sovereigns were unable to stop Yi Fei's group of 5. This was undoubtedly the greatest insult to the Medicine King Manor and the Qingyun Pavilion. Of course, there were many reasons for this outcome. First, Di Fan's group's combat strength and mystique far surpassed the lowest level of sovereigns in Qingzhou. Second, the dragon turtle's poisonous wind was a huge hindrance to these sovereigns. After all, the dragon turtle's poisonous wind could kill a sovereign if it was serious. This also caused a large number of sovereigns to not dare to use their full strength. At all times, they had to be wary of the pig turtle-like vicious beasts that could suddenly spit out poisonous wind. While the sovereigns were fighting, Yi Fei had completely walked through the crowd and directly charged towards the walls of Qingyun City. The Lord of Heaven did not follow him. He only stayed where he was. With the Lord of Heaven's realm, he was in control of the situation. After all, there were hundreds of sovereigns outside. Without the Lord of Heaven's protection, Di Fan's group could easily suffer casualties. However, this meant that Yi Fei would no longer have the Lord of Heaven's protection by his side. The city walls were also very different from the outside of the city. Outside the city, there was no defensive array. It was very likely that they would be targeted by the mysterious races. However, inside the city, there was a special defensive array. Once the array was activated, even a Dao Lord expert would need time to break through it. Therefore, when they saw that Yi Fei dared to rush up the city walls alone, the Medicine King was not the only one who was furious. He felt that Yi Fei was too arrogant and dared to not put the Medicine King manner in his eyes. The Iron Hand Lord of Heaven was shocked and angry. Suddenly, a huge killing intent appeared on his body. A cruel and savage expression flashed across his face. He laughed. Yi Fei, you are really stupid. You actually came to fight me for 2 insignificant subordinate. You are really stupid. Boom. As he spoke, the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven made his move. Since Yi Fei had already reached the top of the city wall, the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven, who no longer had anything to worry about, made a move to kill Yi Fei on the spot. His arm was completely made of metal. It was like the hand of death, and it instantly grabbed at Yi Fei's throat. Hearing the arrogant and callous words of the Iron Hand Heaven Lord, Yi Fei's body emitted an even more terrifying rage. He growled, "Shut up. Lin Chun and Lin Gui may be insignificant in your eyes, but in my heart, they are not only my friends, but also my brothers. I can't let my brother's blood flow in vain. Today I'll take your life." The heavy sword was as heavy as a mountain. Yi Fei brandished it in an instant. There were no complicated sword moves. Yi Fei's sword was always so simple. There was only one movement, and that was to continuously slash forward. He slashed forward crazily, without regard for the consequences. Sword, advance courageously, sword, if not kill, vow not to return. Bam! Yi Fei's heavy sword carried such an imposing aura as it collided with the metal hand of the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven. Both of their bodies shook violently. Yi Fei's expression suddenly became serious. The Iron Hand Lord of Heaven's strength was stronger than he had imagined. "It's the Dragon's Strength Pill. This person must have taken the Dragon's Strength Pill before." Only the Dragon's Strength Pill, which was even stronger than the Shunli Dan, could allow the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven to have such strong divine strength. Seeing Yi Fei's serious expression, the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven revealed a smug smile. "Yi Fei, you are only able to fight against the Lord of Heaven because of your divine strength. Once you lose the advantage of your divine strength, you are nothing in front of me. You are just a dead man. Kill." The iron hands blossomed with a cold light and suddenly turned into two sharp edges that pierced through the void. If such a pair of iron hands were to grab a martial artist, it was likely that even the heavenly palace and divine soul would be crushed to smithereens. This was also the origin of the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven's title. This person cultivated some special technique that allowed him to turn his hands into weapons. Yi Fei's eyes flashed with shock. But when he thought of Lin Chen's tragic death and Lin Gui's self-destruction, Yi Fei's eyes suddenly flashed with a terrifying fury. A blazing purple-gold divine light suddenly erupted from Yi Fei's body like a volcano. Yi Fei did not retreat. He continued to advance. Even if he lost the advantage of his divine strength, even if there was a huge gap between their realms, he had to kill the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven. This was his promise to Lin Chun and Lin Gui. "Kill!" Yi Fei roared. His golden body of laws completely burned like a purple-gold star. With a loud bang, it collided with the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven's iron hands, creating a shocking boom. But this time, Yi Fei's body did not even tremble. His golden body of laws perfectly blocked the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven's terrifying iron hands. Then, the black iron heavy sword ferociously smashed towards the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven's head with a violent hurricane and the power to tear through the void. The Iron Hand Heaven Lord's expression changed. Suddenly, his iron hands released an even fiercer divine light. At this moment, his iron hands underwent a strange transformation. His left hand turned into a shield, blocking the heavy sword's attack. His right hand turned into a battle saber, slashing forward with all his might. The entire space was split in half by this saber. Yi Fei's eyebrows twitched fiercely, but he did not retreat. Instead, he continued to advance. If one strike is not enough, then 2 strikes. If 2 strikes are not enough, then 10 strikes, 100 strikes, 1,000 strikes, 10,000 strikes. Iron Hand, you must die today. Under everyone's gaze, Yi Fei actually ignored the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven's attack once again. The purple-gold light on his body formed a terrifying pillar of fire that burned like a pillar of fire. The black iron heavy sword in his hand slashed wildly, creating a series of terrifying afterimages. The Iron Hand's shield clanked loudly. The sound was as if Yi Fei was using a heavy hammer to hit a piece of iron. No matter how hard the iron was, it could not withstand the continuous hammering of the heavy hammer. Attack! Bang! No one knew how many strikes Yi Fei had made. Everyone only saw the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven's left hand, which had transformed into a shield, being smashed by the black iron heavy sword until it was bent and dented. In the end, it could no longer withstand the impact and exploded. The Iron Hand Lord of Heaven instantly let out an incomparably mournful cry. His hand quickly returned to its original shape, but his entire arm was already dripping with blood. His entire palm had been smashed by the black iron heavy sword to the point where the flesh and blood were curled up, revealing the dense white bones within. Ah! Little bastard, I want you dead. I want you dead now. The Iron Hand Lord of Heaven was enraged. Not only was the great Lord of Heaven unable to break through the golden defense of a junior sovereign, but he was also injured by this junior's heavy sword. How humiliating was that? In his fury, the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven could no longer suppress his murderous intent. A level 4 divine weapon suddenly appeared in his hand. In an instant, he activated the 4 divine runes on it. The 4 divine runes were enough to allow the Lord of Heaven to unleash the power of a monarch god. Chapter 2195. Iron Hand, stop it! The King of Medicine couldn't take it anymore and shouted. Everyone in Black Rock Peak could die, except for Yi Fei. At least, before Bai Yun God and the experts from the Wind and Cloud Palace arrived, Yi Fei couldn't die. But the King of Medicine's words couldn't stop the furious Iron Hand Lord of Heaven. The 4 divine runes in his hand all lit up like stars, and the terrifying light illuminated the world. Finally, the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven launched his strongest attack. Boom! The moment the light appeared, the entire world fell into a terrifying whirlpool of divine light. Meng Shi and Old Man Qingyun stopped fighting at the same time and stared at the city wall that was engulfed in divine light. Iron Hand actually activated the power of a level 4 divine weapon. This bastard, is he trying to kill us? Old Man Qingyun wasn't happy. Instead, he was filled with worry and fear. The group of mysterious giants in Black Rock Peak was a huge beast in his heart. As for the giant beast, it would definitely be completely enraged by Yi Fei's death. How can this be? Isn't it enough that Lin Chun and Lin Gui died? Yi Fei also has to die here. Jiangjin trembled, and 2 streams of blood flowed down from his eyes. If Yi Fei died because of this, he wouldn't only be letting down Black Rock Peak, but also the Heaven and Earth Supremes. No, Yi Fei won't die. He definitely won't die. Lu Qing stopped fighting. Her calm eyes suddenly flashed with excitement and worry. At this moment, Zhao Qianjun walked over and patted her shoulder. Lu Qing, don't worry. No matter how dangerous it is, Yi Fei has already made it here. Since he dared to charge up the city wall alone, he must have his reasons. Boom! The city wall of Green Cloud City started to crack and collapse after being hit by the Divine Lord's attack. Above the collapsed city wall, the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven looked ferocious as he panted. I burned half of the Lord of Heaven's origin for the attack just now. I don't believe that I can't kill you with that. Bam! He raised his undamaged palm and slashed it vertically, scattering the divine light that filled the sky, revealing the empty space on the city wall. The ground where Yi Fei stood had turned into fine powder, but at this moment, above the pile of powder, there was a figure burning with purple-gold flames, arrogantly standing. Rise! Yi Fei had actually withstood that terrifying Divine Lord's attack. He was still holding a transparent porcelain bottle in his hand. That bottle contained a drop of blood given to him by the heavenly Tao tree. When he sensed the Iron Hand Heaven Lord's killing intent, Yi Fei decisively swallowed the drop of blood. Then, he felt as though there was a divine fire burning in his body. The pain made Yi Fei unable to help but roar. However, his roar was quickly drowned out by the rumbling of the Divine Lord's attack. At the same time, when he felt the terrifying power of the Divine Lord of Heaven's attack, Yi Fei's unique bloodline power seemed to be awakened instantly and started to burn intensely. The scene that had appeared in Rizu's tomb once again appeared before Yi Fei's eyes. Yi Fei felt as if there were many things in his mind. However, he couldn't think or even move. His body seemed to have another consciousness, another self. Relying purely on instinct, Yi Fei's body suddenly burned with a different kind of black demonic flame. The demonic flame was extremely terrifying. It could actually form a light shield that blocked the attack of the Divine Lord of Heaven. Then, his eyes suddenly became as dark as the abyss. A pair of illusory and mysterious wings appeared behind his back. After swallowing the blood and activating his bloodline, Yi Fei felt as if his body had undergone an uncontrollable change. This change was coldness, bloodlust, insanity, and a pervasive desire to kill. The Divine Lord of Heaven's attack by the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven had instantly triggered this desire to kill. Roar. What came out of Yi Fei's mouth was no longer a human voice, but a roar like that of a demon god. His consciousness and his soul seemed to have fallen into the most terrifying and darkest demonic path. Above his celestial palace, the brilliant divine moon had turned into a blazing demonic sun. A series of mysterious moves automatically appeared in his mind. This move was the natural mystique that Yi Fei had used before, the divine tribulation. Then, he subconsciously released this natural mystique. A terrifying crimson sword suddenly appeared in his hand. This crimson sword tore through the heavens and earth, and could even shatter nomological laws. It was like a demonic god as it slashed forward. All the Lord of Heaven who sensed the aura of the blood sword stopped breathing. A great fear suddenly rose in their hearts. The Iron Hand Lord of Heaven, who was directly facing the divine tribulation sword, was so scared that his gallbladder shattered. He couldn't believe that Yi Fei, who had activated his bloodline power, could be so terrifying. That blood sword was like a demon god's sword. The Iron Hand Lord of Heaven instantly felt an immense threat of death. Demon Yi, I'll fight you to the death. The Iron Hand Lord of Heaven howled like a vengeful ghost. He had actually burned his origin source and launched another Divine Lord attack. However, this time, his Divine Lord attack was sliced into streaks of light by Yi Fei's blood sword. Then, a beam of blood sword light pierced through his body. Sky, palace and soul. Bam! The Iron Hand Lord of Heaven's eyes widened. Even in death, he still couldn't believe that his Divine Lord attack couldn't block Yi Fei's mysterious blood sword light. His stiff corpse collapsed on the city wall. Then, another beam of sword light cut off the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven's head. Yi Fei's body was burning with pitch-black demonic flames. He was holding the head of the Lord of Heaven in his hand. Suddenly, he lifted his head and roared at the sky. Roar! That voice pierced through the clouds and shook Meng Shi and old man Qin Yun, who were still fighting in the air. They couldn't help but look at Yi Fei in horror. They also looked at the head of Iron Hand Lord of Heaven in Yi Fei's hand. It was the head of Iron Hand Lord of Heaven. Iron Hand is actually dead. You deserve to die, Yi Fei. Old man Qin Yun was thoroughly enraged after his initial shock. Every Lord of Heaven was precious. A Lord of Heaven could be nurtured after his death, but a Lord of Heaven couldn't be nurtured with resources alone. That required great talent and a certain amount of luck. Even the Clear Cloud Pavilion only had 2 Lords of Heaven. Now Yi Fei had killed one. Old man Qin Yun was thoroughly enraged. He stopped attacking Meng Shi and charged at Yi Fei. Chapter 2196. How is this possible? How can a Tao Lord like me not be able to withstand a ruler's claw? Meng Shi's sinister face turned pale. Previously, he had been forced to submit to Yi Fei because of the Heavenly Tao Tree's restriction. But now, after sensing Yi Fei's aura that could kill a Tao Lord at any time, Meng Shi was terrified of Yi Fei from the bottom of his heart. Old man Qin Yun was also shocked, but Iron Arm's death had greatly infuriated the Lord of Heaven. Taking advantage of the moment when Yi Fei grabbed Meng Shi and couldn't attack, old man Qin Yun brazenly slammed his palm forward. Even if he was afraid of the mysterious races in the Grotto Heaven and didn't dare to kill Yi Fei, he still wanted to let Yi Fei have a taste of a Tao Lord's fury. Yi Fei, be careful. Seeing that it was old man Qin Yun who attacked, Zhao Qianjun, who was very confident in Yi Fei's strength, became nervous. Di Fan, Lu Qing, and Jiang Zhen all used their full strength, wanting to charge up the city walls. Unfortunately, they were met with the most stubborn resistance from the rulers of Qingyun Pavilion and Medicine Manor. Old man Qingyun didn't give Zhao Qianjun and the others a chance to charge up the city walls. The terrifying Qingyun palm had already slammed down with a hurricane-like howl. Sensing danger, Yi Fei instinctively raised his hand again and slashed forward with the deity Tribulation Blood Sword. With a loud ripping sound, the Qingyun palm was easily torn apart by the blood sword like a piece of cloth. Old man Qingyun's face was instantly filled with even more fear than Meng Shi's. What kind of bloodline does this kid have? His natural mystique can actually break my Dao Lord mystique? Boom. Seeing that Yi Fei's blood sword could break a Dao Lord mystique, many leaders in Qingyun City were shocked. The Lord of Heaven of Medicine Manor felt their legs turn to jelly. Yi Fei's blood sword also flickered after breaking the Qingyun palm. The desire to kill in his mind also gradually subsided. Yi Fei felt like he was in a dream, but he couldn't remember what he had done in the dream. Soon after, he realized that his hand was strangling the soaring serpent's neck and was still in midair. He was instantly shocked. Strange, wasn't I fighting with the Iron Hand Heaven Monarch? Why did I suddenly grab the soaring serpent's neck? Meng Shi suddenly felt like crying. Zhao Qianjun and the others were speechless. But in the end Yi Fei to wake up. Zhao Qianjun shouted, "The Iron Arms, Lord of Heaven, is dead. Let's return to Black Rock Peak first." Yi Fei was shocked to see that his other hand was holding the head of the Iron Arms, Lord of Heaven. No wonder he had felt the Dao Lord Mystique's anger. He had actually killed the Iron Arms, Lord of Heaven, without anyone noticing? It had to be because of that bottle of blood. The death of the Lord of Heaven was a huge loss to any faction. After waking up, Yi Fei didn't dare to stay here and bear the Dao Lord's wrath. After releasing Meng Shi, Yi Fei took the lead and rushed down the city wall. Meng Shi hurried after him, looking at Yi Fei with a hint of fear. Without the orders of Old Man Qingyun and the Medicine Lord, ordinary sovereigns wouldn't dare to stop Yi Fei and a Dao Lord from breaking out. They could only watch as Yi Fei's group broke through the encirclement. The ground was a mess. Many sovereigns were dead or injured. Some had been swallowed by Zhao Qianjun, some had been killed by Jiang Zhen and Di Fan's mystiques, and some had been electrocuted into charcoal. However, most of them had been poisoned to the ground by the dragon turtle. Seeing this, the Medicine Lord was livid. Hundreds of sovereigns couldn't stop Yi Fei's group. "Qingyun, why didn't you go after them?" The Medicine Lord was very displeased. If Old Man Qingyun had been willing to risk his life, Yi Fei might not have been able to escape so easily. This time, it wasn't just Qingyun Pavilion. Even the Medicine Lord Manor's reputation had suffered a great blow. Old Man Qingyun didn't say anything in response to the Medicine Lord's question. He just stared at Yi Fei's departing figure with a complicated expression. Not long after, Yi Fei returned to Lin Peak with the head of the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven. He personally placed the head in front of Lin Chen and Lin Gui's tombs to pay his respects. Then, without stopping, Yi Fei hurried into the heavenly abode world to consult the heavenly Dao tree. On the way back, Xiao Chao and Ling Siki had already told him everything that had happened after Yi Fei's bloodline awakening. Only then did Yi Fei know that after swallowing the blood and awakening his bloodline, not only did he trigger another divine tribulation, but he also lost consciousness. He almost killed the flying serpent that had approached him. This made Yi Fei both shocked and afraid. He was shocked that he didn't have the terrifying power that filled his body after the bloodline awakening. He was afraid that he couldn't. He couldn't control that power. When he walked into the palace, he saw the huge heavenly Dao tree from afar. It supported the entire heavenly abode. Seeing Yi Fei coming over, the heavenly Dao tree wasn't surprised. "Yi Fei, are you here to ask about your bloodline?" "That's right, Senior Heavenly Tao Tree. I have awakened my bloodline, but why can't I control this power? This power is even suppressing my consciousness. Yi Fei's expression was serious. It was good to have power, but if it was uncontrollable, then it would be terrible. The Heavenly Tao Tree swayed its branches and said, I heard from the previous Spirit Lord that the higher the bloodline, the harder it is to control it. As for what realm you need to reach, and what conditions you need to be able to control the bloodline of the Emperor of Earth, you can only rely on yourself to figure it out. After all, the bloodline of the Emperor of Earth is called the Calamity of Calamity. It is a taboo. Moreover, the bloodline of the Emperor of Earth seems to be hiding a huge hidden danger. This is also the reason why you are called the people abandoned by the heavens. Calamity? There are hidden dangers? Yi Fei's face was dark. As a person abandoned by the heavens, he was already very unlucky. In the end, this seemingly powerful bloodline of the Emperor of Earth seemed to hide some hidden dangers. Yi Fei was even more depressed. I thought that after coming to the heavenly abode, I would be able to turn things around. In the end, I'm even more unlucky. Yi Fei was speechless. Seeing that Yi Fei was very unhappy, Xiao Chao and Ling Siki ran out together. They patted Yi Fei's head, one on the left and one on the right, trying to comfort him. Yi Fei was even more speechless. The Heavenly Tao Tree also coughed dryly and encouraged him. Yi Fei, don't worry too much. I think the biggest reason why you can't control your bloodline now is because your realm is too low. Perhaps when you break through to the Monarch God or even Renzu, you will be able to solve the hidden dangers and control it. You might even be able to control your bloodline. After all, Yi Fei was still under the threat of Renzu, Rizu. The Heavenly Tao Tree also had to urge Yi Fei to make the best use of his time to cultivate. Although he understood that the Heavenly Tao Tree was doing this for him, Yi Fei couldn't help but ask, but what if I break through to Renzu and still can't solve the hidden dangers of the Emperor of Earth's bloodline? Chapter 2197. Speaking of this, the Heavenly Path Tree suddenly felt extremely awkward. It could not find any better words to comfort Yi Fei. Yi Fei also did not know what to say to express the depression in his heart. In the end, he could only accept the Heavenly Path Tree's bad idea, which was to try his best to raise his cultivation realm first. Then, he would use his realm to reverse the situation and try to control the bloodline of the earthly emperor in his body. In the following days, Yi Fei began to cultivate in seclusion in the heavenly abode. Di Fan and Zhao Qianjun also cultivated in seclusion. Without a direct confrontation with the Clear Cloud Pavilion and the Medicine Manor, one would never know how powerful these two forces were. In terms of the number of sovereigns, the current Lin Feng could not compare to the Clear Cloud Pavilion, much less the Medicine Manor. Fortunately, the Medicine King and Old Man Qin Yun were afraid of the terror of the trance and did not dare to attack Lin Feng. However, Yi Fei knew that this stalemate was only temporary. Once Bai Yun God brought the experts of the Wind Cloud Palace to avenge his son, Lin Feng's current strength would be destroyed in an instant. Knowing this, not only were Di Fan and the others working hard, Lin Tianjiao, the army of destruction, and even Xia Jun and Luo Shi were everywhere in the heavenly abode, fighting the trance. As a former teacher of the Divine Star Academy, Jiang Zhen personally taught Yi Shanshan, Yi Xiaochan, Pang Bei, and the others how to break through to the sovereign realm. Lu Qing also contributed some of the skills he had learned in the Wind Cloud Palace. In addition, elders such as the Grand Supreme Dean and Tian Fa Quasi-Emperor also traveled between the heavenly abode and the earthly abode, trying their best to bring loyal and reliable experts from the earthly abode to the heavenly abode and strengthen Lin Feng. While Yi Fei was in seclusion, Lu Li and Wu Gang of the Human Emperor's Palace both broke through to the earthly venerable realm and entered the heavenly abode. A new generation of battle sorcerers also appeared in the sorcerer tribe, strengthening Lin Feng's strength. In the end, even the three array masters, Tianjinzi, Dijinzi, and Array Fairy, decided to bring all the Array spirits of the Array sect into the heavenly realm. As a result, Lin Feng's strength continued to grow at a rapid pace. However, none of the local forces of the Baiyun nation dared to approach Lin Feng. Just as Yi Fei was receiving the people from the land and strengthening Lin Feng, the Medicine Manor and Clear Cloud Pavilion, who felt that they could no longer suppress Yi Fei's growth, finally made a difficult decision. They announced that the Clear Cloud Pavilion would join the Baiyun Alliance led by the Medicine Manor. They would officially merge and form a new power. It was the strongest power in the Baiyun nation, the Qingyun Alliance. This decision also broke the power balance of the Baiyun nation in one fell swoop, and the Qingyun Alliance became the dominant power. If it wasn't for the strong side Yi Fei had shown in Qingyun City, it was estimated that on the day the Qingyun Alliance was established, all the big and small forces in the Baiyun nation would have submitted to the Qingyun Alliance. The Qingyun Alliance was established. However, there were also some itinerant cultivators who were grateful to Yi Fei for saving them from the zombie soldiers. They immediately passed on the news of the establishment of the Qingyun Alliance to Lin Feng. At the same time, Yi Fei had saved 3 girls from Lu Qianzhong. They were Lu Qing's junior sister, who secretly passed on a message to Lin Feng. This time, the Medicine Manor and Clear Cloud Pavilion were not the only powers that had established the Qingyun Alliance. The Heavenly River royal family had also sent Bai Lung to express their willingness to join the Qingyun Alliance and fight against Yi Fei. Currently, the Heavenly River royal family was hurriedly refining new zombie soldiers and preparing to invade the Baiyun nation on a large scale. After receiving this news, Yi Fei took a deep breath. It seems like we have no choice but to enter the Divine Prefecture. If we allow the Clear Cloud Pavilion, the Medicine Manor, and the Heavenly River royal family to form an alliance, we will be trapped in the heavenly abode in the future and be at the mercy of others. Yi Fei would never allow such a situation to happen. Soon, Yi Fei passed on his decision to Di Fan, Zhao Qianjun, Lu Qing, and Jiang Zhen through telepathy. They were the only 4 dominators in Lin Feng at the moment. Including Yi Fei himself, there were only 5 of them. It was not that Yi Fei did not want to bring more people, but each time they passed through the gate of immortal essences, it would consume 1,000 Xian meridians. 5 people would consume 5,000 Xian meridians. Even Yi Fei could not bear it. Hence, besides Di Fan and the other 3, Yi Fei only brought along Xiao Chao and the dragon turtle. Ling Siki was chased out of the beast mark space. This made the little girl burst into tears. She accused Yi Feihong of cheating on her husband and not being faithful to her husband. According to the customs of the Tianling continent, such a despicable man would be thrown into a pig cage. However, when Yi Fei said with a dark face that he might bring back candied haws, the little girl's sorrow turned into joy. She even took out her handkerchief and waved it around, telling Yi Fei to come back early. Yi Fei was speechless. Then, he opened the gate of immortal essences again and walked in carefully. Di Fan, you guys be careful. Even though it's been more than a month, I'm afraid that those people from the Yin Yang Palace will not give up. They might stay in Supreme Emperor Heaven to ambush us. It's better if they come. I want to see how big the gap is between us and the geniuses of the Divine Continent. Di Fan was covered in purple energy, while Zhao Qianjun was covered in demonic energy. They were 2 typical warmongers. Yi Fei suddenly felt a little worried. If the Yin Yang Palace really had the patience to ambush him, they might hit a snag. Thinking of this, Yi Fei became more courageous. He took the lead and stepped out of the gate, entering Supreme Emperor Heaven again. Roar! Supreme Emperor Heaven was still the same. The sky was gray, the mountains were barren, and there were countless demonic beasts of laws. The moment Yi Fei stepped out, countless swords and sabers appeared around him, slicing through heaven and earth and shattering the void. This was not an attack from a demonic beast of laws. It was clearly an attack from a formation. Yi Fei had actually fallen into a formation trap the moment he stepped into Supreme Emperor Heaven. This is clearly not the work of a demonic beast of laws. Someone deliberately calculated where I would appear and set up a killing formation here. Yi Fei's face turned cold, and the cold face of the Yin-Yang Palace's Yang Ming immediately appeared in his mind. As the killing formation activated, 5 youths wearing the Yin-Yang Palace's uniform appeared outside the formation. One of them looked at Yi Fei with disdain and said, "This person is a remnant of the Heavenly Palace of Despair. Senior brother Yang Ming ordered us to capture him." Chapter 2198. These 5 disciples of the Yin-Yang Palace had clearly been lying in ambush for more than a day or two. They hadn't just set up one killing formation, but a total of 18. They formed a unique chain of killing formations. At this moment, they activated all 18 killing formations at the same time, intending to heavily injure Yi Fei. Even if they couldn't heavily injure him, they would first wear down Yi Fei's golden body of laws. However, what they didn't expect was that Yi Fei wasn't the only one who had entered Supreme Emperor Heaven. Di Fan and the others were there as well. The moment they stepped into the killing formation, Zhao Qianjun, who was the most experienced and the most ruthless, rushed out from the door of immortal essences. Rolling lightning suddenly transformed into a mysterious evil sword ray that tore apart the killing formation, instantly blocking 1/3 of the killing formation's power. Di Fan, who came out at the same time, was surrounded by a vast purple aura. He also condensed a lightning mountain in his hand and blasted it in all directions, once again blocking 1/3 of the killing formation's power. The last to come out were Lu Qing and Jiang Zhen. At the same time, they executed the Thundercloud Palm and the Divine 5 Lightning Bell to block the remaining 1/3 of the killing formation's power. On the other hand, Yi Fei didn't feel any pressure facing the layers of killing formations. When he realized that he had fallen into an ambush, he raised his black iron heavy sword and smashed it forward. Boom! The heavy sword smashed a huge hole in the killing formation that the 5 disciples of the Yin-Yang Palace had painstakingly set up. Yi Fei instantly passed through the hole and rushed out of the killing formation. How could this be? The 5 disciples of the Yin-Yang Palace were all stunned. Originally, their ambush should have been a sure thing. The 18 chain of killing formations should have been enough to shatter Yi Fei's golden body of laws. The only thing they didn't expect was that the people who entered Supreme Emperor Heaven this time were none other than Yi Fei. There were a total of 5 people, not just Yi Fei. "Senior brother," that brat rushed out. "What should we do? What else can we do? If we can't capture them, we can just kill them. After all, they are just a few surviving members of the Heavenly Palace of Despair." The leading disciple of the Yin-Yang Palace sneered and suddenly shouted. His 5 fingers had already formed the Yin-Yang Palace's famous mystique, the Yin-Yang Sky Flipping Hand. It flipped yin and yang and shattered the void. Then, he ruthlessly slapped Yi Fei's body. Yi Fei didn't even look at such an attack. He had been ambushed the moment he entered. Yi Fei was thoroughly enraged. His golden body of laws burned like a raging inferno. While blocking the Yin-Yang Sky-Flipping Hand, the heavy sword whistled and smashed towards the man's face. That person didn't panic even after being smashed. He still had a disdainful sneer on his face. "Your golden body of laws is indeed powerful, but it's not without a counter. I'll let you experience the power of the Yin-Yang 5 Elements Divine Light. Junior brothers, get into formation and kill this bastard." Whoosh! The 5 disciples of the Yin-Yang Palace suddenly took a step forward in unison. As they blocked Yi Fei's attack, 5 mystiques with different auras suddenly appeared on their bodies. Then, these 5 mystiques miraculously fused together to form a new mystique, the Yin-Yang 5 Elements Divine Light. Boom! 5 huge 5 elements light pillars suddenly blasted onto Yi Fei's body like divine spears and divine swords. Yi Fei was immediately shocked to discover that his golden body of laws was actually covered in cracks by this fusion of mystique. He was forced to retreat continuously and was almost sent flying. Haha, you didn't expect this, did you? The yin-yang 5 elements divine light is the counter of your golden body of laws. Put in more effort and let this bastard know the power of the yin-yang palace. Boom. Another 5 light pillars of different attributes fused together and blasted toward Yi Fei. Yi Fei's expression became unprecedentedly solemn. Ever since he had cultivated his golden body of laws, this was the first time he had encountered his nemesis. However, this yin-yang 5 elements divine light is just a battle of numbers. As long as I break their formation, I have a chance of winning. Big Black, shrink quickly. Yi Fei didn't continue fighting these people head-on. As he retreated continuously, Yi Fei grabbed the dragon turtle from the beast mark space. However, the dragon turtle had shrunk to the size of a palm. Yi Fei secretly threw it on the ground. Then, without waiting for the 5 youths to react, Yi Fei suddenly emitted a dazzling purple-gold light to shield the dragon turtle. Then, he brazenly charged towards the 5 youths. Humph, you're courting death. The 5 disciples of the yin-yang palace were enraged. They linked their auras again and unleashed the yin-yang 5 elements divine light at the same time. 5 huge light pillars blasted onto Yi Fei's body at the same time. With a loud boom, Yi Fei's golden body of laws was completely shattered. The young man closest to Yi Fei suddenly let out a miserable shriek. Just now, he had been completely focused on dealing with Yi Fei, and hadn't noticed that a small black turtle had actually rolled to his feet and ruthlessly bit his leg without any hesitation. The furious youth was about to raise his leg and stomp the black turtle to death on the spot. Suddenly, his entire face turned dark green at a speed visible to the naked eye. He fell straight to the ground and lost the ability to fight. As he lost the ability to fight, the powerful yin-yang 5 elements divine light from before also disappeared. The yin-yang 5 elements divine light was instantly destroyed. The remaining 4 youths stared furiously at the black turtle that specialized in biting people. If looks could kill, they would definitely kill the dragon turtle 10,000 times over. Unfortunately, before they could settle the score with the black turtle, Yi Fei's black iron heavy sword whistled through the air and smashed into one of them. There was only an explosive boom. That youth's chest was caved in and all his bones were shattered. He was smashed to death by the heavy sword. How dare you kill someone from the yin-yang palace? The remaining 3 youths were shocked. They looked at Yi Fei with a hint of fear in their eyes. Then, without another word, they roared and joined forces again. 2 of them charged towards Yi Fei. 1 of them charged towards the dragon turtle. Obviously, the dragon turtle's action of poisoning a ruler had alerted the others. Boom! At this moment, 4 figures rushed out of the killing formation that was originally in operation. Just as Yi Fei was fighting with the 5 youths, Di Fan, Zhao Qianjun, Lu Qing, and Jiang Zhen successfully rushed out of the killing formation and joined the battle without another word. Yi Fei, step back first. Let us see how powerful these geniuses of the divine prefecture are. Zhao Qianjuan's eyes shone with an evil light. His demonic aura burned like flames and eventually formed a unique devouring power. This was the natural superpower that Zhao Qianjun obtained when he entered the heaven realm and awakened his bloodline. It was the devouring superpower. It could devour all of the opponent's energy. It was equivalent to a weaker version of the devouring divine physique. On the other side, Di Fan's purple aura was vast and mighty. It was as if a purple armor was draped over his body. That was Di Fan's natural superpower, the holy armor. This was the first time Di Fan had used it since it was awakened. Once it was used, Di Fan and Zhao Qianjun immediately exploded with astonishing combat power. Chapter 2199. Purple Lightning. Boom. Lu Qing ignited her bloodline. As the first person to enter the heaven realm, and having received guidance from Bai Yun Divine Lord in the Wind and Cloud Hall, Lu Qing had naturally awakened her innate mystique. Her mystique was purple lightning. Lu Qing raised her eyebrows, and a purple lightning beam shot towards her opponent continuously. Boom! It felt as if her opponent had been facing the bombardment of the heavenly tribulation and was caught off guard. Not to mention, Lu Qing wasn't attacking alone. Beside her, there was Jiang Zhen, a senior sovereign realm expert, assisting from the side. 1 against 2, and one of them was a bloodline warrior with a natural ability. The result of the battle was self-evident. The battle only lasted for a dozen breaths. The disciple of the Yin-Yang Palace was severely injured and vomited blood. He had lost the ability to fight. However, even though he was severely injured, his face was still filled with arrogance and unwillingness. He shouted, "I am the son of an elder of the Yin-Yang Palace. If you kill me, the Yin-Yang Palace won't let you off. If you know what's good for you, you'd better let me go." Is the son of an elder that great? Do you think you can disregard human life and kill us as you wish? Yi Fei couldn't hold back the anger in his heart when he heard this. Fortunately, he came with Di Fan and the others. If he was careless and came alone, even if he didn't die, he would be captured and humiliated by these people. When he heard the other party's threatening words, Yi Fei didn't say anything. He only raised his heavy sword and smashed it towards the other party. "Speak, where is Yang Ming? Why are you the only ones here to ambush me?" Previously in the Supreme Emperor Heaven, Yang Ming seemed to have discovered that he had the indestructible sword token. That was why he didn't hesitate to turn hostile and bring people to kill him. Yi Fei felt uneasy. When he heard Yi Fei's words, the other party's face was filled with disdain. He sneered and said, "I'll say it again. Either you let me go obediently and I'll pretend that nothing happened today, or you kill me. However, my father, an elder of the Yin-Yang Palace, will definitely avenge me." This person was somewhat arrogant, but his arrogance was completely based on the fact that he had an elder of the Yin-Yang Palace as his father. Hearing this, not only were Lu Qing and Jiang Zhen angry, but Di Fan, who had already finished off his opponents, also had a displeased look on his face. "Another spoiled brat? Leave it to me. Not to mention that he's a second-generation ancestor. Even if he's a 20-generation ancestor, I can make him spill the beans about how he wet his bed when he was young." Zhao Qianjun laughed heartily and directly opened the vertical eye between his eyebrows. "This is Zhao Qianjun's demonic eye, it is very strange." Lu Qing's face was slightly red. She was helpless against Zhao Qianjun's indecent words. She could only stomp her foot and walk over to Yi Fei's side. At the same time, she was very curious as to what methods Zhao Qianjun had used to force this person to reveal such things. Zhao Qianjun quickly unleashed his evil art. His wretched eye began to emit a strange attractive force that seemed to be able to pull him in. A person's consciousness was pulled into his eyes. Staring at the pair of evil eyes, shock and fear flashed across the young man's face. "No, you can't invade my consciousness." Bang! Before he could finish his words, the young man's fate wheel suddenly exploded. His sky palace shattered and the spirit inside was blown into ashes. Zhao Qianjun also screamed. A crack appeared on his demonic eye between his eyebrows. Seeing this, Yi Fei was very nervous. "Senior brother Zhao, are you alright? What happened just now? Why did he suddenly explode?" Lu Qing looked at the young man's corpse in confusion. Zhao Qianjun's face was pale. "I was careless. I didn't expect the Yin-Yang Palace to be so ruthless. They actually placed a restriction on their disciples. Once I tried to probe their consciousness, the restriction hidden in their spirit would activate and destroy them in an instant." Jiang Zhen was also shocked. "In this case, won't our efforts be in vain? Or will we not be able to find out the exact situation of the enemy?" "Not necessarily. Isn't there another one over there who can still breathe? Yi Fei walked over to the Yin-Yang Palace disciple who was poisoned by the dragon turtle. He pointed his heavy sword at him and said, "Do you want to live or die? If you want to die, I'll give you a quick death. If you want to live, blink your eyes and answer a few questions." Whoosh whoosh. As soon as he finished speaking, the person blinked his eyes violently. Yi Fei was speechless. However, he still got the dragon turtle to detoxify the person. Only then did the person stand up, trembling. "I can answer your questions, but I definitely can't reveal the Yin-Yang Palace's cultivation techniques and secrets. Otherwise, I will die a miserable death." Yi Fei nodded. He knew that the Yin-Yang Palace's disciples had a restriction in their spirit. The moment they revealed important information, their spirit would be destroyed. He nodded. "I won't force you to obtain the Yin-Yang Palace's cultivation technique. You just have to tell me where Yang Ming went." Senior brother Yang entered the core region of the Supreme Emperor Heaven not long ago to fight for the ancient imperial seal. The person's words surprised Yi Fei. He quickly asked, "What is the ancient imperial seal?" The person was even more surprised. "You don't even know about the ancient imperial seal?" The ancient imperial seal is naturally the seal left behind by the ancient emperor. As long as you obtain the seal's recognition, you can come into contact with the ancient imperial source left behind by the ancient emperor in heaven and earth. From there, you can obtain the possibility of breaking through to the Lord of Heaven. Since Yi Fei wasn't asking for any secrets, this person explained everything in detail about the ancient emperor's seal. Only then did Yi Fei understand why Yang Ming and Ziyu hadn't appeared. It turned out that they had gone to fight for the more precious ancient imperial seal. After all, compared to hunting nomological demonic beasts, breaking through to the Lord of Heaven was more tempting. When he thought of this, Yi Fei's mind jolted. What he was most anxious about now was breaking through to the Lord of Heaven. Since he had heard that obtaining the ancient imperial seal's recognition would give him the opportunity to break through to the Lord of Heaven, Yi Fei naturally wouldn't give up. Yi Fei asked in a deep voice, "Where is the ancient imperial seal? Do you have a map?" "Yes. The ancient imperial seal is in the Sky Pool Ancient Land. However, there are many top 10 nomological demonic beasts there. It is very difficult for ordinary martialists to get close to that place. I don't have the map you want, but Senior Brother Chen is the son of an elder. He might have it on him," said the person. Zhao Qianjun immediately found a very exquisite map. This was a map of the Supreme Emperor Heaven. There were many important locations marked on it. Chapter 2200. The Skypool Ancient Land is not bad. We can go and take a look. Yi Fei quickly made a decision. Not only would he obtain the recognition of the ancient imperial seal, but he would also have the opportunity to break through to the Lord of Heaven. Most importantly, the Skypool Ancient Land was home to many of the top 10 nomological demonic beasts of Supreme Emperor Heaven. Since he already knew the benefits of refining nomological demonic beasts, Yi Fei naturally hoped to be able to refine even more powerful nomological demonic beasts, especially those in the top 10. Jiang Zhen smiled wryly and said, "Yi Fei, I won't go to the Heavenly Lake Ancient Land. I'll help you look after this person. If he dares to lie to us, I'll make him die a horrible death." "Heroes, I didn't lie to you, I can swear on it." The Yin-Yang Palace disciple's face turned pale. He was afraid that Yi Fei would silence him, so he immediately endured the pain and took out a diagram. "That's right, I have a specific ranking of nomological demonic beasts here. As long as you let me go, I guarantee that I won't tell anyone about this matter. I'll tell everyone about what happened today." Yi Fei took the diagram in surprise. Indeed, there were many nomological demonic beasts drawn on it. All of them were vivid and lifelike, except for the top 10 nomological demonic beasts. Since very few people had defeated them, a lot of the information was blank. As for the nomological demonic beasts below the top 10, even their attack methods and weaknesses were marked out in detail. It was no wonder that those martialists had been able to deal with the nomological demonic beasts so easily. It was all thanks to this diagram. Zhao Qianjun also took the diagram in surprise. This diagram is not bad. With this diagram, Old Jiang and I will be able to find the corresponding nomological demonic beasts in Supreme Emperor Heaven and upgrade our fate wheels. Then I'll stay too. It's time for my fate wheel to be upgraded. Di Fan nodded as well. Yi Fei was depressed when he heard this, but he also understood why they were staying. After all, there were actually 12 fate wheels. In Qingzhou, due to the limitations of cultivation techniques, the limit of a martialist's fate wheel was 9. Compared to the divine prefecture's 12 fate wheels, there was a difference of a small realm. This was also the reason why warriors from other states could rarely compete with the geniuses from the divine prefecture. Even when Di Fan and the others defeated the disciples of the Yin-Yang Palace, they did not rely on their realms. Instead, they relied on their natal superpowers and their advantage in numbers. This was also the reason why they had chosen to stay and hunt down ordinary law beasts. Compared to going to the Heavenly Pool Ancient Land, they were more eager to upgrade their fate wheels. Understanding this, Yi Fei did not insist. He only nodded and said, "All right then. You guys stay here and keep an eye on him." There were 3 reasons for keeping this person as a disciple of the Yin-Yang Palace. First, Yi Fei had already promised not to kill him. Second, if this person had lied and provided false information, Yi Fei wouldn't even need to do anything. Just Zhao Qianjun, the evil demon Sword King, would be able to make him suffer a fate worse than death. Furthermore, with this disciple of the Yin-Yang Palace as a cover, Zhao Qianjun and the others could completely disguise themselves as disciples of the Yin-Yang Palace and hunt law beasts in Supreme Emperor Heaven openly. Hearing Yi Fei's decision, the disciple of the Yin-Yang Palace turned pale. However, he couldn't resist at all. After agreeing on a rendezvous point and a secret signal with Di Fan and the others, Yi Fei immediately set off and rushed to the Heavenly Pool Ancient Land. Lu Qing was with him. Due to the fact that he had cultivated in the Wind and Cloud Hall, Lu Qing's fate wheel had already been upgraded to the limit of 12 fate wheels. Now that he had encountered an opportunity to break through the Lord of Heaven, Lu Qing naturally wouldn't let go of this opportunity. Therefore, he chose to travel with Yi Fei. According to the disciple of the Yin-Yang Palace, Yang Ming and the others have already gone to the Heavenly Pool Ancient Land 10 days ago. "We have to speed up," Lu Qing told Yi Fei nervously. After all, an opportunity to break through the Lord of Heaven was too rare. Yi Fei, on the other hand, was very certain and said solemnly, "We'll definitely make it. The deeper we go into Supreme Emperor Heaven, the stronger the law demonic beasts will be. Yang Ming's group will definitely anger those powerful law demonic beasts. There will be endless battles along the way, and it will waste a lot of time." However, Yi Fei had an advantage that Yang Ming and the others didn't have. He had Xiao Chao and the Undying Sword Soul. Xiao Chao's spiritual eye of the heavens and earth could easily sense the nomological aura of law beasts, no matter how well hidden they were. Even if there really were law beasts that could hide from Xiao Chao's senses, Yi Fei still had the Undying Sword Soul. As the nemesis of law beasts, he could quickly get rid of any approaching law beast. However, Yi Fei didn't have the opportunity to obtain the Undying Sword Soul along the way. After being stimulated by Gao Yu's use of the Qingyun treasure mirror to conceal his aura, Xiao Chao had been working hard to cultivate for a while. As a result, Xiao Chao's spiritual eye of the heavens and earth had become even more powerful. It was even showing signs of transforming into the divine eye of the heavens and earth. Therefore, under Xiao Chao's intense gaze, the law beasts couldn't even get close to Yi Fei, let alone sneak up on them. The dragon turtle also took advantage of the opportunity when Yi Fei and Xiao Chao were focused on hurrying along the way to open its mouth again and gorged itself on the magnetite in the beast mark space. Soon, the dragon turtle, who had lost a lot of weight from spitting out poisonous wind, magically regained its weight. Yi Fei and Xiao Chao were speechless when they saw this. Without law beasts blocking their way, Yi Fei and Lu Qing's journey was naturally unimpeded. Soon, the two of them hurried to the outermost area of the Heavenly Pool Ancient Land, according to the map's instructions. Although this place was called the Heavenly Pool, in Yi Fei's eyes, it was more like an ocean formed by the convergence of law beasts. However, instead of seawater, it was filled with colorful law beasts. Amidst these law beasts, Yi Fei could faintly sense a powerful aura hidden within. So beautiful! As a woman, Lu Qing couldn't help but feel excited when she saw this gorgeous heavenly pool. Squeak squeak. Similarly, Xiao Chao was also excited. Xiao Chao never had much resistance towards shiny things. She immediately dragged the dragon turtle by its tail and rushed into the heavenly pool. Then, she happily rolled around inside. It was rare to see Xiao Chao so happy, so Yi Fei didn't stop her. Instead, he also rushed into the heavenly pool and lay down comfortably on it. Lu Qing's expression suddenly became very strange. Yi Fei, it doesn't seem very good for Xiao Chao to be like this, right? What's not good about it? Yi Fei was very puzzled. Xiao Chao and the dragon turtle also raised their heads and looked at Lu Qing strangely. Lu Qing couldn't help but put her hand to her forehead and said helplessly, "No matter how young Xiao Chao is, she's still a girl." She tried to be as tactful as possible. Yi Fei also couldn't help but scratch his head. He stood up and said seriously, "Isn't it good for Xiao Chao to roll around? I think she's quite cute." Chapter 2201. In the depths of the heavenly lake, Yi Fei could vaguely see a huge seal emitting a dazzling radiance that shone in all directions. Attracted by the radiance, the entire Supreme Emperor sky was filled with roars. Countless nomological demonic beasts had already gathered into a torrent and were rushing towards the ancient sky pool from all directions. Upon seeing this, Yi Fei and Lu Qing's expressions changed drastically. The disciple from the Yin-Yang Palace had never mentioned that there would be a stampede of beasts in the Heavenly Lake Ancient Land. Could it be that the disciple from the Yin-Yang Palace lied to us? Lu Qing's face was pale. At that moment, a black line appeared in the distant sky. That black line was actually countless nomological demonic beasts rushing towards the Heavenly Lake Ancient Land. Yi Fei hurriedly recalled his Xiao Chao and instructed the dragon turtle to transform. "Blackie, run quickly. Run towards the depths of the Heavenly Lake Ancient Land." As he spoke, Yi Fei and Lu Qing had already jumped onto the dragon turtle's back. Without needing Yi Fei's urging, the dragon turtle was already screaming in fright when it saw the large group of nomological demonic beasts chasing after it. It was like a crazily spinning oar as it swam frantically in the heavenly lake. Lu Qing was dumbfounded by the speed of its escape. Yi Fei, on the other hand, was unperturbed. After all, the dragon turtle was the overlord of the water. This heavenly lake was similar to an ocean. When the dragon turtle entered it, it naturally felt like a dragon returning to the sea. Then, Yi Fei's gaze shifted to the depths of the heavenly lake. Needless to say, that was the ancient Emperor's seal. I just don't know if the ancient Emperor's seal activated on its own or if it's man-made. If it's man-made, it means that the fight for the ancient Emperor's seal has already begun. Yi Fei's expression was grave. With the dragon turtle fleeing for its life, he quickly arrived at the periphery of the heavenly lake. Soon, he entered the depths of the heavenly lake. Once he reached there, the waves in the heavenly lake became even more violent. At the same time, a violent aura rushed towards Yi Fei. Roar! They saw a gigantic sea serpent head deep within the massive wave. Its snake eyes were staring ferociously at Yi Fei and the dragon turtle that was frantically paddling. Lu Qing took out the atlas and glanced at it. His expression turned grim. Yi Fei, be careful. This is the 8th-ranked snake of hurricane. Its hurricane can directly invade the heavenly palace and blow away the soul. Yi Fei's eyelids twitched violently. This was at least 10 times more terrifying than the evil Emperor sword. It was no wonder that Yin-Yang Palace, one of the top 10 forces, didn't have many records of the top 10 demonic beasts of laws. Such demonic beasts of laws were simply unparalleled existences in the sovereign realm. At that moment, the giant snake had its eyes on the dragon turtle. Yi Fei had the urge to kick the dragon turtle away. It's all because of you, Black Turtle. You're so fat that even the demonic beasts of laws have their eyes on you. They want to kill you for your meat. Hearing those words, the dragon tortoise's expression instantly turned ashen. It began to paddle even more diligently. Even its tail smashed into the heavenly lake with a paw sound. Like an oar, it began to paddle frantically. As the dragon tortoise used all 5 of its limbs, its paddling speed increased by another level. This time, even Yi Fei was dumbfounded. He had never seen the dragon turtle's tail move so fast. Xiao Qiao's eyes sparkled as if he had discovered a new continent. Then, a hurricane-like roar shook the entire heavenly lake. The snake of hurricane didn't give Yi Fei and the others a chance to escape. With a swing of its tail, a gigantic wave that was hundreds of meters tall came crashing down. Yi Fei also roared. His golden body of laws and black iron heavy sword were activated together. The sharp sword light formed a gigantic purple-gold sword. With a crack, it cut the gigantic wave in half. Boom! Lu Qing's entire body bloomed with lightning. Like an angry mother of lightning, she controlled the lightning and released terrifying bolts of purple lightning. It was like a mini heavenly tribulation. Unfortunately, Lu Qing's natural mystique couldn't cause much damage to the snake of hurricane. In the end, the snake of hurricane was annoyed. It suddenly opened its mouth and swallowed the bolts of purple lightning. How can this be? Lu Qing was shocked. Yi Fei's heart also sank. Although he knew that the top 10 demonic beasts of laws were terrifying, this snake of hurricane was too terrifying. After all, he didn't even find it so strenuous to deal with the 9th-ranked evil Emperor sword. Roar! Even more terrifying was yet to come. After swallowing the purple lightning, the snake of hurricane became even more violent. It opened its mouth and created dozens of terrifying waves that were hundreds of meters tall. It forced Yi Fei to use all his strength to continuously shatter these waves. However, Lu Qing's exclamation could be heard from below. Just as Yi Fei was breaking through the wind and waves, the huge tail of the hurricane serpent suddenly rose from the bottom of the heavenly lake and slammed towards the dragon turtle. Lu Qing reacted immediately and used the thundercloud palm to block the attack of the serpent tail. Attack! However, her thundercloud palm still didn't cause much damage to the snake of hurricane. Instead, the dragon turtle was hit by the shockwaves from the two's exchange and flipped upside down in the heavenly lake. Yi Fei and Lu Qing were shocked. They quickly abandoned the snake of hurricane and rushed towards the dragon turtle. Blackie, are you alright? Bam! The dragon turtle's flipped belly suddenly flipped back. Its eyes flashed with immense rage and brutality. This time, the dragon turtle was completely enraged. It opened its black mouth and spat out countless green poisonous winds. Those winds formed wind blades and cut the snake of hurricane's body even more violently. The snake of hurricane suddenly stopped moving and allowed the dragon turtle to attack its body. When the dragon turtle's demonic power was exhausted and it couldn't spit out any more poisonous wind blades, the snake of hurricane's head looked down coldly. Its eyes were filled with disdain and a hint of mockery. Yi Fei's expression also became serious. I think I understand why this snake of hurricane is so strong. Lu Qing, take the dragon turtle and retreat. I will deal with it. Boom. The dazzling sword light once again turned into a meteor and blasted towards the body of the serpent of hurricane. The serpent of hurricane was not afraid at all. In its eyes, a human ruler like Yi Fei was just an insignificant ant. There was no way he could be its opponent. Faced with Yi Fei's heavy sword, the snake of hurricane quickly raised its tail. Its huge tail was like a heavy mountain. With a loud bang, it collided with Yi Fei's heavy sword. Yi Fei's heavy sword easily created a huge dent in the snake's tail. However, before Yi Fei could continue to cause damage to the snake of hurricane, suddenly, the injured snake of hurricane let out a hiss. It opened its mouth and inhaled. The boundless water of laws in the heavenly lake surged into its body. In an instant, the injury caused by the heavy sword was healed. At the same time, a terrifying force was transmitted from the snake's tail. Chapter 2202. Yi Fei, are you alright? Lu Qing rushed over from afar and transformed into a thundercloud palm to help Yi Fei block the snake of hurricane's next attack. Yi Fei could not help but nod inwardly. He had asked Lu Qing to retreat because he did not want her to be in danger. However, when he was in danger, Lu Qing had still attacked without hesitation. However, after the battle with the snake of hurricane, Yi Fei had finally discovered the secret of this nomological demonic beast's invincibility. Lu Qing had come at just the right time. Lu Qing, when I rush up to entangle this giant snake, you take the dragon turtle and dive into the heavenly pool. Act according to the situation. After quickly adjusting his aura, Yi Fei immediately raised his dark steel heavy sword and rushed toward the snake of hurricane. Lu Qing also widened her eyes as she watched Yi Fei rush forward. She felt that Yi Fei's plan was really too crazy. However, it is precisely because Yi Fei can think and do what others dare not do that he has been able to come this far step by step. I finally understand why Zhao Yu likes him like this. What? As she spoke, Lu Qing had already gritted her teeth and quickly dived into the heavenly pool with the dragon turtle like a beautiful mermaid. The snake of hurricane did not notice Lu Qing's actions because it was completely enraged by Yi Fei's provocation. Roar! It opened its mouth and suddenly spewed out a terrifying black wind that blew away the void like black smoke. Yi Fei's expression was also extremely tense. He knew that this black wind should be the snake of hurricane's most terrifying remarkable ability. According to the records of the Yin-Yang Palace's atlas, this kind of black wind seemed to be able to directly penetrate a warrior's sky palace and blow away the warrior's soul. Yi Fei did not dare to touch this black wind. He only used all his strength to swing the dark steel heavy sword in his hand. At the same time, fierce lightning suddenly appeared on Yi Fei's body. Finally, it formed the divine clock world that Jiang Zhen was best at. A loud thud was heard. When Yi Fei turned the divine bell upside down, the mouth of the serpent of hurricane, as well as its entire head, was locked into the divine bell world. Boundless lightning instantly exploded violently within the divine bell. Not only did it tear apart the strange black wind, but it also charred the body of the serpent of hurricane. But even with such a heavy injury, the serpent of hurricane still had no intention of retreating. Instead, it was filled with anger from being hurt by the puny human. Roar! The deafening roar formed a sound wave that tore the world apart. In an instant, the divine clock world that Yi Fei was trying his best to control was shattered into pieces. At the same time, the serpent of hurricane's body once again burst out with a strange divine light, as if it wanted to absorb energy to heal its injuries. Now, Lu Qing, do it. Yi Fei had also been waiting for this moment. Through the battle just now, he had already realized that the reason why the snake of hurricane was invincible was because it was constantly absorbing the power of the law water in the heavenly lake. What would happen if someone were to expel the snake from the heavenly lake all of a sudden, preventing it from absorbing the water of the heavenly lake? Yi Fei was waiting to see what would happen. At the bottom of the heavenly lake, the moment Yi Fei roared, Lu Qing had already unleashed all of his dark force. With a loud boom, he charged upwards from the bottom of the heavenly lake toward the serpent of hurricane's body. The dragon turtle's eyes were also red. It swore that it would take revenge for being blown away by the serpent of hurricane in one breath. Its huge body was like a cannonball. It followed closely behind Lu Qing's supernatural power and crashed into the serpent of hurricane's body with a loud boom. The serpent of hurricane was instantly knocked out of the heavenly lake and onto the surface of the heavenly lake, empty. Its entire body was completely separated from the heavenly lake. Its originally contemptuous eyes were now filled with shock and panic. The serpent of hurricane no longer fought with Yi Fei. Instead, it wanted to rush back into the heavenly lake at its fastest speed. However, at this moment, a whistling sword light, like a burning star, continuously smashed toward the serpent of hurricane's body. Bam! The power of the heavy sword and Yi Fei's divine power once again smashed the serpent of hurricane even higher into the sky. A glint of excitement and fighting spirit flashed across Yi Fei's eyes. As expected, as long as I cut off its connection with the heavenly lake, it will not be able to absorb any energy to heal its injuries. Even if it is ranked 8th, demonic beasts of the laws are not undefeatable. Undying sword soul, wake up! Boom! The moment the serpent of hurricane was smashed high into the sky, Yi Fei's body also burned like a ball of purple-gold flames. Within the flames, a dark golden divine sword pierced into the serpent of hurricane's body at lightning speed. Above the heavenly lake, a terrifying profound chi storm suddenly erupted. That storm blew the water of the heavenly lake into huge waves that were 1,000 meters high. At the top of the huge waves, Yi Fei held the dark golden divine sword tightly with both hands. He was like a powerful god-fiend, constantly refining the power of the laws and continuously raising the serpent of hurricane. The serpent of hurricane reached even higher into the sky. A look of despair and fear flashed across the serpent of hurricane's eyes. It seemed that it had not expected that it would be defeated in such a way. In the end, it let out a final roar and its snake body completely collapsed. At the same time, a ray of light of hurricane law with a strong aura of hurricane fell into Yi Fei's hands. Yi Fei hesitated for a moment and did not absorb it. Instead, he threw it to Lu Qing and said, "Lu Qing, this hurricane law is for you." This could be considered a form of compensation to Lu Qing. After all, if it were not for him, the human demon would not have captured Lu Qing into the heavenly realm and made her suffer so much. "No, I didn't do anything. You were the one who defeated the serpent of hurricane. You should be the one to refine it." Lu Qing shook her head and resolutely returned the light of hurricane law. After all, she was known as a goddess. How could she not understand Yi Fei's intention of compensation? However, she did not need any compensation, nor did she have any intention of blaming Yi Fei. Yi Fei still felt a little apologetic. He simply forced the light of hurricane law to Lu Qing and said, "My target is the number 1 dragon of hurricane law. If you don't want it, I can only throw it away." Roar! The dragon turtle squatted by the side with cold eyes. It watched as Yi Fei and Lu Qing rejected each other and expressed to each other that they did not want this law. The dragon turtle immediately felt its heart ache. It felt that Yi Fei and Lu Qing were wasting it. Immediately, it stretched out its black mouth and bit down on the law of hurricane. Blackie Yi Fei and Lu Qing looked at the dragon turtle in shock. However, the dragon turtle looked innocent. It even raised a sign and said, "Didn't you say you didn't want it?" Yi Fei's expression turned extremely dark. He really wanted to drag the dragon turtle out and beat it up. Lu Qing did not know whether to laugh or cry. Unfortunately, the dragon turtle had already taken the initiative to bite the law. She could only remind Yi Fei gloomily, "The next time you encounter a law Fei beast in the top 10, give it to me. I definitely won't refuse." "All right, if I encounter it again, I'll give it to you even if it's the number 1 dragon of hurricane law," Yi Fei said indifferently. After all, he felt guilty towards Lu Qing. Yi Fei was not a petty person. Chapter 2203. Wu Jieluqing was indeed a man of his word. He immediately spread out the map to search for traces of the Law Divine Dragon. Yi Fei also curiously leaned over. This map only shows the route of the Heavenly Pool Ancient Land. It doesn't show the exact location of the Law Divine Dragon. Are you sure you can find it just by looking at the map? Yi Fei found it a little funny. The ancient sky pool was actually like a sea outside. It was just that the sea water of the ancient sky pool was formed by laws. Trying to find a Law Divine Dragon in such a heavenly lake was like looking for a needle in a haystack. However, Lu Qing's expression was very serious. It's not on the map, but it doesn't mean that a Law Divine Dragon won't appear in the location on the map. With that said, Lu Qing buried his head in studying the map. During this time, Yi Fei also threw the dragon turtle back into the beast mark space. However, the dragon turtle's poison wind. If I can refine the second-level hurricane law, I wonder if the dragon turtle will be able to strengthen the poison wind? Yi Fei was looking forward to it. Amidst his anticipation, Lu Qing also lifted his head and pointed in a certain direction. I feel that this direction has the highest chance of encountering a Law Divine Dragon. Are you sure? Yi Fei looked at the direction Lu Qing was pointing at with a strange expression. However, he did not object because the direction Lu Qing was pointing at happened to be where the ancient emperor's seal was manifesting. Usually, the location of a precious treasure like the ancient emperor's seal would be filled with experts and great danger. At the thought of this, Yi Fei's heart skipped a beat. Perhaps, as we get closer to the ancient imperial seal, we might really encounter a divine law dragon. Besides, it was rare to see Lu Qing so serious. If Yi Fei was disappointed, he would definitely face serious consequences. Thinking of this, Yi Fei obediently kept his mouth shut and let Lu Qing lead the way. The two of them continued to walk deeper into the heavenly lake ancient land. Yi Fei did not really care about encountering a Law Divine Dragon. He did not forget his main objective in coming to the heavenly lake ancient land. He wanted to obtain the recognition of the ancient emperor's seal and obtain the opportunity to break through the Lord of Heaven. On the other hand, Lu Qing was still very serious about searching for traces of the Law Divine Dragon. Yi Fei was speechless. Lu Qing, forget it. If we can encounter the number 1 Law Divine Dragon like this, it would be too ridiculous. In his opinion, to encounter a Law Divine Dragon, one would either be extremely lucky or extremely unlucky. That's not necessarily true. Never underestimate a woman's intuition. If I say that a Law Divine Dragon will appear, then it will definitely appear. Lu Qing was somewhat unconvinced. It was also at this moment that the heavenly lake started to shake violently again. Yi Fei's expression immediately turned serious. He stopped joking around with Lu Qing and stood in front of him. Step back. The turbulence in the heavenly lake is even more intense than the serpent hurricane. I think something big is coming. Could it be a Law Divine Dragon? Lu Qing suddenly asked excitedly. How is that possible? Although my luck has always been bad, it would be too unlucky to encounter a Law Divine Dragon like this. Roar! Before he could finish his sentence, something happened that made Yi Fei's jaw drop. An extremely handsome 5-clawed divine dragon suddenly charged out of the rolling waves. Yi Fei compared it with the map of the Yin-Yang Palace in his mind. He realized that it really was a Law Divine Dragon that had appeared. Moreover, it was not just one, but two. Yi Fei suddenly felt like crying. Even if he was a person who had been abandoned by the heavens, he could not be so unlucky. 2 Law Divine Dragons had appeared at once. Even if he had the undying sword soul, he would definitely not be able to defeat these 2 divine dragons. Lu Qing also widened her eyes. I was just saying. There really are Law Divine Dragons here. There seems to be someone between the 2 divine dragons. When the divine dragons appeared, Yi Fei did not see anyone else because of the waves. It was only when the waves broke apart that Yi Fei was surprised to see that the two Law Divine Dragons were not coming for him. Instead, they were chasing after another blue-robed youth. The youth had thick eyebrows and a burly figure. He was like a human-shaped bear. Even though he was being chased by two Law Divine Dragons, he was only in a sorry state and was not seriously injured. Get out of the way. I, Wu Jie, am having an unlucky year. I actually encountered two Law Divine Dragons at once. Go back and tell my girlfriend that if I don't die, we will meet again in the ancient land. If I die, tell her to find another good partner. Don't miss your love. After saying that, the blue-robed youth suddenly turned. He wanted to take the two Law Divine Dragons and circle around from afar to avoid Yi Fei and continue fleeing. Lu Qing was startled on the spot, but when she heard the blue-robed youth's words, she could not help but laugh. This person is interesting. He can't even save himself, but he still cares about his girlfriend. Perhaps this is called being sentimental. Yi Fei suddenly felt a lot better when he saw the blue-robed youth in a sorry state being chased. At least, he, who had been forsaken by the heavens, was not particularly unlucky. Roar. Just as Yi Fei was thinking about this, something happened. After all, the Law Divine Dragons that could be ranked first were all very intelligent. The blue-robed youth wanted to use the method of luring away ordinary Law Fey beasts to lure the two Law Divine Dragons away. This was undoubtedly an insult to the Divine Dragon's intelligence. Not only did the two Divine Dragons fail to be lured away, but they also flew into a rage at the same time. It was as if their reverse scale had been touched. One of the Divine Dragons continued to chase after the blue-robed youth in a frenzy. The other Divine Dragon suddenly turned its head and stared at Yi Fei and Lu Qing with its huge dragon eyes. There was a cruel smile and faint mockery. Obviously, when Yi Fei encountered the two Law Divine Dragons, he had become their hunting target. In the eyes of martialists, Law Fey beasts were treasures. Conversely, in the eyes of Law Fey beasts, martialists were equivalent to great spirit-replenishing elixirs. In particular, Yi Fei's strongest point was his physical body. When he stood in front of the Law Divine Dragons, he was no longer a spirit-replenishing elixir but a burning human torch. One of the Divine Dragons instantly swooped down. Its 5 dragon claws pressed down across the sky, creating a huge vortex in the sky pool. Above the vortex was the nomological body of the nomological Divine Dragon. If it had been an ordinary ruler, just facing the pressure of the Law Divine Dragon's aura would have made them fearful and lose their will to fight. Even though Yi Fei had the indestructible sword soul, he still felt his scalp go numb. He was shocked to discover that the aura of the Law Divine Dragon was dozens of times stronger than the Hurricane Serpent. This was basically a true invincible realm. Even if the Lord of Heaven came personally, it would probably be very difficult to kill such a divine dragon. It was no wonder that the map of the Yin-Yang Palace only had a vague picture of the Law Divine Dragon. There was no record of them at all. Yi Fei even suspected that the martialists who had encountered Law Divine Dragons in the past had all died. Roar! Chapter 2204. Slaying a Divine Dragon. Yi Fei's expression turned serious as he faced the sudden attack of the nomological Divine Dragon. He immediately looked at Lu Qing and asked, "Do you want to fight this Divine Dragon?" "Fight. You take the lead. I'll cover you." Lu Qing nodded. As she spoke, the originally quiet girl suddenly turned into a furious mother of lightning. Lightning whizzed around her like a mini heavenly tribulation that rumbled in the opposite direction. A look of contempt flashed across the eyes of the nomological Divine Dragon. As the strongest Divine Dragon among the nomological divine beasts, how could it take a mere human ruler seriously? The heavy 5-colored dragon claw slammed down again. Not only did it shatter the lightning in the sky, but it also mercilessly slammed down on Lu Qing's body. At this moment, a purple-gold figure suddenly rushed out from the gap between the 5-colored dragon claws. Yi Fei was holding the black iron heavy sword in his hand. It had a terrifying power that could shatter the sky and cut the void. The huge body of the divine dragon was smashed into the sky and broke away from the heavenly lake. This was also Yi Fei's little trick to deal with these nomological divine beasts. As long as these nomological divine beasts left the heavenly pool and were unable to use the heavenly pool's power to heal their injuries, he was confident that he could defeat a nomological divine dragon. Roar! The nomological divine dragon that had been sent flying out of the heavenly pool also roared fiercely. Yi Fei's actions angered the divine dragon even more than if he had touched its reverse scale. The five-colored dragon claw that had slammed down on Lu Qing suddenly retracted. It was like 5 divine hooks that had been retracted from the inside. It wanted to grab Yi Fei and crush him like an ant. Yi Fei's reaction was also very fast. He sensed the evil wind behind him and suddenly used his dark steel heavy sword as a shield. A layer of purple-gold nomological divine light suddenly burned on his body. Boom! The power of the 5-colored dragon claw landed heavily on Yi Fei's back. However, with the help of the dark steel heavy sword and the golden body of law, Yi Fei only spat out a mouthful of blood. His entire body shot forward like a cannonball as his golden body shattered. Upon seeing this human ant jump onto the dragon's head, the Law Divine Dragon was enraged. This anger turned into a terrifying divine dragon flame that burned all over its body. As it burned Yi Fei, its heavy tail smashed towards Yi Fei's body like a meteor. This guy is so arrogant. He actually charged directly onto the mystical dragon's head? In the distance, although Wu Jie was being chased by the mystical dragon, he was still paying attention to Yi Fei's situation. Originally, he had thought that the two of them would definitely flee under the pursuit of the mystical dragon. Who knew that not only did Yi Fei not flee, but he actually fought the mystical dragon. What a pity! That's a law divine dragon after all and not an ordinary law demon beast. It's too late to escape from it, let alone defeat it. Wu Jie shook his head. He did not think highly of Yi Fei. At the same time, the heavy dragon tail was about to smash into Yi Fei's head like a whistling mountain, blocking Wu Jie's vision. Yi Fei finally stopped hiding, and immediately awakened his undying sword soul at the fastest speed possible. Then, Yi Fei did not stop on the Law Divine Dragon's head. Instead, when the Law Divine Dragon opened its mouth and roared, his entire body transformed into lightning and suddenly charged into the dragon's mouth. Wu Jie's eyes widened. He can actually do that? Although the Law Divine Dragon is not made of flesh and blood, isn't he afraid of being refined by the Law Divine Dragon if he charges in like that? Wu Jie's strength was very terrifying. When faced with 2 mystical dragons, he could only flee pathetically. However, when faced with 1 mystical dragon, he was actually able to handle it with ease and was not afraid of the mystical dragon's pursuit. At this moment, he was looking at the violently tumbling mystical dragon with an extremely shocked expression. Yi Fei, who had charged into the dragon's mouth, was definitely not a great delicacy. He was the god fiend that would end the mystical dragon. The moment he entered the dragon's mouth, the undying sword soul turned into a huge vortex and frantically refined everything about the Law Divine Dragon. This was also the reason why the Law Divine Dragon was tumbling violently. It wanted to use this method to throw Yi Fei out, but unfortunately, the power of the undying sword soul was too strong. As long as it was energy, it could be refined and absorbed. Although the Law Divine Dragon was strong, it had a fatal weakness. It was not a real mystical dragon and did not have flesh and blood. What made up its body was actually the laws. As long as Yi Fei used the undying sword soul to refine these laws, the Law Divine Dragon would be defeated. Before long, the Law Divine Dragon let out its final wail. Its entire body completely collapsed. At the same time, a strong ray of nomological light appeared in Yi Fei's hand. Damn, he really succeeded. Could the dragon's mouth be the law divine dragon's weakness? Then I'll charge in too. Seeing Yi Fei succeed, Wu Jie could not help but feel agitated. Without another word, he charged into the dragon's mouth that was chasing him. Then, Wu Jie felt that he was in a tragedy. After charging in, not only did he fail to defeat the mystical dragon quickly like Yi Fei, but he was also trapped in the dragon's mouth and refined by the mystical dragon. Yi Fei also looked in shock at Wu Jie, who had charged into the dragon's mouth. He thought that he was crazy enough, but he never expected that there would be someone crazier than him. I only dared to take the risk because I have the undying sword soul. What does this person have that he dares to charge into the dragon's mouth? Yi Fei was curious, but soon, his curiosity turned into speechlessness. Not long after they rushed into the dragon's mouth, they heard a thunderous cry for help. F***ck, this dragon's mouth isn't its weakness at all. It's clearly the gates of hell. Brothers outside, hurry up and give me a hand. This dragon's mouth stinks. Yi Fei was even more speechless. He felt that this blue-clothed youth was indeed a little eccentric. However, this person's strength was truly terrifying. Even after being swallowed into the divine dragon's mouth, he was still able to wreak havoc inside. The divine dragon's body was constantly bulging, as though it was about to burst out of the divine dragon's body of laws. Lu Qing also walked over in surprise and asked, "What do we do? Do we save this person?" "Let's save him. This person shouldn't be bad." Yi Fei thought about it and decided to help. Most importantly, he had promised to give Lu Qing a nomological mystical dragon. And he needed one himself. Now that he had encountered one, he naturally could not let it go. "Lu Qing, let's do it the same way. Blast the mystical dragon into the sky and leave the rest to me." Yi Fei's face darkened. He raised his dark steel heavy sword and charged into the sky. At this moment, Lu Qing dived into the heavenly pool again. With a thunder cloud palm, he blasted the second mystical dragon into the sky. Taking advantage of the moment when the mystical dragon left the heavenly pool, Yi Fei's sword whistled through the air and smashed into the mystical dragon's head. Kill, Emperor Slaying Fist. Chapter 2205. Entrance to the Ancient Lands, alright? Yi Fei didn't say much. Because of his actions, the mystical dragon hated both him and Wu Jie. At this time, he naturally couldn't hold back. Yi Fei raised his dark steel heavy sword and charged into the mystical dragon's mouth again. Seeing Yi Fei's actions, Wu Jie's face twitched violently. He hurriedly warned, "Brother, be careful. That mystical dragon's mouth stinks." Yi Fei almost stumbled and fell from the sky. Then, he saw a huge dragon claw viciously swiping at him. However, this dragon claw didn't manage to grab Yi Fei. Wu Jie had already rushed in front of him, his fists glowing with a mysterious light as they collided with the dragon claw. "I'll attract its attention. You're in charge of killing it." "Sure." Since Wu Jie knew how to cooperate, Yi Fei also erupted with all his strength. Taking advantage of the moment when the dragon opened its mouth to roar, he turned into a shadow and once again charged into the dragon's huge mouth. Just as Wu Jie had said, the dragon's mouth was really smelly. Then Yi Fei's face darkened. He summoned his undying sword soul again and absorbed the mystical dragon's nomological body on the spot. The mystical dragon also let out a mournful cry. At the same time, its body exploded into a stream of light. An array of nomological light flew into Yi Fei's hand. "Great, we've finally killed these two dragons of nomological laws." Wu Jie heaved a sigh of relief and immediately rushed to the place where the mystical dragon had exploded. Just as Yi Fei thought that this person would come to fight for the mystical dragon's nomological laws, Wu Jie was inside, anxiously searching for something. Yi Fei was stunned. Could there be something better than the mystical dragon's nomological laws? Lu Qing also looked at Wu Jie curiously. What are you looking for? Of course, I'm looking for the mystical dragon horn. This is the certificate to obtain the recognition of the ancient emperor's seal and enter the ancient emperor's grounds. You can only obtain it by killing the top 10 nomological demonic beasts. Wu Jie excitedly found a dragon horn that was emitting a divine light from where the mystical dragon had exploded. Yi Fei and Lu Qing looked at each other. Wu Jie's eyes widened in surprise. No way. Which force are you from? You don't even know the conditions to enter the ancient land? Itinerant cultivator, no power, Yi Fei said indifferently. He also took the opportunity to test this person's reaction. Hearing this, Wu Jie's eyes widened again. Then, he looked at Yi Fei with even more surprise. However, he did not ask further. Instead, he patiently explained, to enter the ancient land, one must possess a token from one of the 10 Law's demonic beasts in order to gain the recognition of the ancient emperor's seal. This is also a test. There are 2 of you. If you want to enter, you must possess 2 tokens. But there is only one of us. Lu Qing was a little annoyed. He held the dragon horn that he had just found in his hand. Yi Fei was also very depressed. Strange, when I killed the snake of hurricane, why didn't I find the token? Could it be with Blackie? Lu Qing suddenly reminded him. Yi Fei suddenly came to a realization and hurriedly sent his consciousness into the beast mark space. He saw the dragon turtle with its belly facing the sky as it cultivated diligently. On the other hand, Xiao Chao was hugging a shiny scale and rolling around happily. The scale still had the remnant aura of the snake of hurricane. He immediately calmed down and nodded at Lu Qing. Don't worry. We already have the token. That's great. I've also collected all the tokens. If you don't mind, I can bring you into the ancient land. Wu Jie was rather forthright. Lu Qing blinked and hesitated. Then what about the 2 divine dragons' nomological laws? You can keep them. The cultivation technique I cultivate is sufficiently high level. The nomological laws I comprehend are only stronger than the nomological divine dragon's nomological laws, Wu Jie explained patiently. Only then did Yi Fei know that in the divine continent, certain high-level cultivation techniques could allow one to comprehend very powerful nomological laws. Those who entered Supreme Emperor Heaven to hunt nomological demonic beasts were ordinary disciples who had not mastered any high-level cultivation technique. Of course, the Heavenly Pool Ancient Land was an exception. After all, it could help one break through to the Lord of Heaven. Even if one did not need to hunt nomological demonic beasts, there would still be some geniuses from the divine continent who would enter this place to compete for the opportunity to enter the ancient land. For example, Wu Jie was one of them. Of course, I entered the ancient land for my girlfriend. Her talent is relatively average, so breaking through to the Lord of Heaven will be risky. I just happened to hear that the Heavenly Pool Ancient Land is about to open, so I brought her here to try her luck. Wu Jie explained indifferently. Yi Fei nodded secretly. Along the way, he could tell that Wu Jie was not a bad person. As the cultivation technique he had mastered was sufficiently high level, Wu Jie did not covet the divine dragon nomological laws. Only then did Yi Fei relax and refine the divine dragon nomological laws on the spot. With the refinement of the divine dragon nomological laws, Yi Fei's realm instantly rose from the mid-stage to the late stage of the ruler realm. What surprised him even more was that the divine dragon nomological laws not only increased his realm, but also gave him a summoning ability. Moreover, he could summon a nomological divine dragon. The divine dragon nomological laws are actually so powerful? On the other side, Lu Qing was also shocked. She had also refined the divine dragon nomological laws. Not only did her realm rise to the mid-stage of the ruler realm, but she also gained the ability to summon divine dragons. However, Wu Jie shook his head. In your eyes, the divine dragon nomological laws are very powerful. However, in the eyes of true geniuses, the divine dragon nomological laws are actually not the strongest. However, such geniuses would not enter the heavenly pool, so it is impossible for us to meet them. Alright, the entrance to the ancient land is in front. Suddenly, Wu Jie pointed to a huge island in front of them. Although it was called an island, it was actually an ancient seal that suppressed the heavenly lake. And in the middle of the ancient seal, there was a huge gap that allowed one to enter the ancient seal world inside. Yi Fei knew that this was the ancient imperial seal. Wu Jie, where did you run off to? I was so worried. Just as Wu Jie led Yi Fei and Lu Qing into the ancient land, an anxious-looking woman hurried over from a reef in the ancient land. She was not considered a beauty, but she gave off a very comfortable feeling. Let me introduce you. This is my girlfriend, Jiang Ting. This is Yi Fei, a friend I just made. I was being chased by 2 nomological divine dragons. It was all thanks to Brother Yi that I was able to escape successfully. Hearing this, Jiang Ting said to Yi Fei gratefully, I'm Jiang Ting. Thank you for saving Wu Jie. No need to thank me. Even if I did not do anything, with Brother Wu's abilities, 2 nomological divine dragons would not be able to do anything to him, Yi Fei said calmly. Just based on the fact that Wu Jie could still fight vigorously after being swallowed by the divine dragons, Yi Fei knew that his help was just icing on the cake. He had no intention of taking credit for it. Hearing this, Jiang Ting also had a good impression of Yi Fei. She smiled and said, No matter what, without your help, this fellow would not have returned unscathed. Right. This is. Jiang Ting looked at Lu Qing. Before Yi Fei could introduce her, Wu Jie had already rushed to say, This should be Brother Ye's girlfriend. Jiang Ting, take care of her. Wu Jie's words almost caused Yi Fei to cough up a mouthful of blood. He regretted having Wu Jie do the introductions. Lu Qing's face turned red and he almost subconsciously sent a bolt of lightning at Wu Jie. Chapter 2206. Scarlet Moon Divine Dynasty. The one who spoke was none other than Yang Ming of the Yin-Yang Palace. When he saw that Yi Fei had also come to the ancient land, Yang Ming was truly shocked. It had to be known that in order to deal with Yi Fei and seize the mysterious black sword that could refine demonic beasts of laws, Yang Ming had specially arranged for 5 experts of the Yin-Yang Palace to ambush Yi Fei in the dark. Now that Yi Fei had appeared here, there was no news of his 5 subordinates. Yang Ming wasn't a fool and naturally understood that those people had most likely met with misfortune. This infuriated Yang Ming. He walked over and exposed Yi Fei in front of everyone, but Yang Ming had already waved his hand. The yin-yang sky-flipping palm whistled through the air and suddenly attacked Yi Fei. Seeing this, Yi Fei suddenly felt a chill. Although Lu Qing did not know Yang Ming, she quickly understood Yang Ming's identity when she saw Yang Ming's yin-yang palace attire. Lu Qing's body could not help but emit traces of lightning. However, Yi Fei and Lu Qing didn't make a move. This was because when Yang Ming made his move, Wu Jie, who had been joking just a moment ago, suddenly became angry. He was like a giant bear that had been enraged. Bang! His fan-like hand slapped forward and coincidentally collided with Yang Ming's yin-yang sky-flipping palm. An intense divine light erupted, followed by a muffled groan from Yang Ming. The two had only exchanged one move, but Yang Ming had already been forced to retreat. His face was flushed red, and it was obvious that he had suffered some injuries. Wu Jie, why did you interfere? You might not know this, but this person is a remnant of the heavenly palace of despair. He snuck in through trickery. Historically, only the top 10 factions of the Supreme Emperor Heaven have been allowed to enter. By sneaking in like this, he clearly doesn't put us in his eyes. Yang Ming was furious. He thought that Wu Jie had been deceived by Yi Fei. He was a little clever. Not only did he expose Yi Fei's identity with a few words, but he also instantly pushed Yi Fei to the opposite side of the top 10 factions. Yi Fei could also see that Yang Ming was strong on the outside but weak on the inside. When Yang Ming said those words, he was obviously afraid of Wu Jie. However, Yang Ming's shouting immediately attracted the attention of the other influences around the ancient land. Around the reef, over 20 groups of people began to walk out. Lu Qing was astonished. Didn't you say that only the top 10 powers could enter Supreme Emperor Heaven? Why are there almost 20 forces here? These are all vassal forces of the 10 great powers. If you pay a certain price, you can also enter the Supreme Emperor Heaven. Later, don't say anything. Wu Jie and I will cover for you, whispered Jiang Ting to Lu Qing and Yi Fei. At the front, Wu Jie also pretended to be furious. He took a step towards Yang Ming without holding back. He glared and said, "Scram? What remnants of heavenly palace of despair? These two are my subordinate. Or is it not enough that you destroyed heavenly palace of despair, you want to destroy my jade palace too?" What? Destroy jade palace? The vassal forces who came to watch couldn't help but have a strange expression. Someone even recognized Wu Jie's identity and said in shock, "I know him. He is Jade Palace's Wu Jie." It is said that Wu Jie has a very rare 7th grade Mad God bloodline. It is very likely that he will enter the Earth Fiend ranking this year. What? Earth Fiend ranking? Only true geniuses can enter the Earth Fiend ranking? Hiss. Many people who didn't know Wu Jie showed a look of awe. Yi Fei also instantly received 2 pieces of information. First, bloodline seems to be divided into grades. The higher the grade, the stronger the bloodline. At the same time, the true geniuses of Divine Prefecture seem to be concentrated on the Earth Fiend ranking. Hearing the discussion around him, Yang Ming's expression changed greatly. He was afraid of Wu Jie. Yang Palace was not as powerful as Jade Palace. Even if he knew that Yi Fei couldn't be a subordinate of Jade Palace, he didn't dare to expose him and completely offend Wu Jie. In the end, Yang Ming didn't say a word. He left with a pale face and walked directly towards the entrance of the ancient Emperor's seal. Other disciples of Yang Palace can only reluctantly follow him. "Senior brother, that kid can come to Heavenly Pool Ancient Land. Senior brother Chun and the others must be in trouble. Are we just going to let it go? Humph, he's lucky to meet Wu Jie, a busybody. Although Jade Palace is strong, there are stronger than Jade Palace. Bear with it for now. Later, I will make that bastard kneel in front of me and beg for mercy." Suddenly being bullied by Wu Jie, Yang Ming can only swallow his anger and leave. Yang Ming's heart is very angry, but he doesn't dare to offend Jade Palace, so he can only vent his anger on Yi Fei. Watching Yang Ming leave, Yi Fei was surprised by Wu Jie's identity, but at the same time, he was very grateful to Wu Jie and said, "Brother Wu, thank you for this time. You don't have to thank me. I can't help you anyway, but you have to be careful. Yang Ming is not a threat to you. I'm afraid that Yang Ming will expose your matter to other factions, and use a faction stronger than Jade Palace to deal with you. At that time, even I won't be able to help you. Wu Jie is burly, as strong as a bear, but his mind is very careful." Yi Fei also took this advice seriously. "Don't worry, if Yang Ming really colludes with other factions to deal with me, I promise that he won't be able to return." Yang Ming sent people to ambush him. Yi Fei has always remembered this matter, not to mention that Yang Ming coveted his indestructible sword command and tried to rob him. For these 2 points, even if Yang Ming didn't come to him, he will take the initiative to look for Yang Ming. Just after the people of Yang Palace entered the ancient Emperor's seal, other factions looked at Wu Jie's side. They are all subordinates of the top 10 factions. If the people of the top 10 factions don't go in first, they won't dare to go in easily. Wu Jie smiled and handed a dragon horn to Jiang Ting. He then called out to Yi Fei and Lu Qing, "Brother Yi, let's hurry up and go in. Otherwise, if we wait too long, some people will blame us in their hearts." "Haha, young Master Wu is joking. Even if young Master Wu is a little late, we can afford to wait. Facing Wu Jie's joke, many cultivators of the top 10 factions laugh. Yi Fei also has a preliminary understanding of the power of the top 10 factions. Then, his heart moved, and he asked Jiang Ting beside him, "Is Despair Heavenly Palace really destroyed? Aren't you from Despair Heavenly Palace? Don't you know? Jiang Ting is very strange." Yi Fei shook his head gloomily and said in a deep voice, "I'm not. I just happened to cultivate Despair Heavenly Palace's cultivation technique." Jiang Ting looked at Yi Fei with a little surprise. She was originally very gentle, but now there is a trace of seriousness. Then you have to be careful. Despair Heavenly Palace once angered the Divine Dynasty and was destroyed by the Divine Dynasty. Even if you are not a remnant of Despair Heavenly Palace, it is best not to use Despair Heavenly Palace's martial arts. Otherwise, you will be rejected by the Divine Dynasty and the top 10 factions. The Divine Dynasty is the ruler of the entire heaven realm. It is called the Crimson Moon Divine Dynasty. Don't think that the top 10 factions are the overlords of the Divine Continent. Compared to the Crimson Moon Divine Dynasty, we are far inferior. Therefore, in the heaven realm, you can offend anyone, but never try to anger the Divine Dynasty. The Despair Heavenly Palace is the best example. Wu Jie turned his head and said. Yi Fei realized that the situation in the Divine Continent was more complicated than he thought. A huge question arose in his heart. Back then, 5 of the top 10 factions of the Divine Continent participated in the destruction of the spiritual world. Could it be this so-called Crimson Moon Divine Dynasty that could mobilize these 5 factions? Chapter 2207. Yang Ming's revenge. Yi Fei walked towards the gap in the ancient imperial seal and was surprised to discover that his body was rapidly shrinking while the ancient imperial seal was rapidly enlarging. Very soon, the ancient imperial seal that was originally the size of a mountain had already become a real world before his eyes. Not sure if it was due to the influence of the ancient imperial seal, but the heaven and earth mystic chi in this ancient seal world was actually 100 times more than the outside world, which was also to say that cultivating for a day here was equivalent to 100 days of cultivating in the outside world. It was also no wonder that those subsidiary forces of the top 10 forces racked their brains in hopes of being able to enter. Supreme Emperor Heaven is a paradise for martial artists. Yi Fei took a deep breath and said, "But it's also a dangerous place. At most, only 5 people can obtain the ancient imperial seal's recognition each time. But we have 10 major forces and numerous small forces." Jiang Ting's brows were filled with worry. Wu Jie immediately extended his bare paw and held her hand. "Ting, don't worry. Not to mention 5, even if it's 4, I'll definitely get a spot for you." Jiang Ting smiled gently and shook her head. "If that's really the case, you must get that spot. You can't give it to me. After all, your goal is the Earth Carnage Proclamation. I can't drag you down." This was a reasonable woman. It was just that their public display of affection always made Yi Fei and Lu Qing feel a little awkward. Continuing to walk forward, Yi Fei soon discovered that something was amiss. Strange. Why are there no traces of battle? He clearly saw the Yin-Yang Palace's people enter before them, but not a single one of them could be seen. Could it be that the ancient imperial seal's test isn't a battle but some other method? Lu Qing said after some thought. "Sister, you're right. The ancient imperial seal's first test isn't a battle but a maze. Actually, the entire ancient imperial seal is a huge maze. Whoever solves the maze first will obtain the advantage. Of course, this test also has the highest elimination rate," Jiang Ting explained. Yi Fei also nodded gloomily. Among the many tests, the maze was not the most dangerous, but it was the most annoying. If one was careless and fell into the maze, they would be trapped inside for a long time without being able to get out. Don't worry. The labyrinth of the ancient emperor's seal, has been deciphered by generations of people who have entered this place. They have also left behind many markings to guide the way. As long as we follow these markings, we can quickly pass through this labyrinth. Wu Jie was well prepared. He took out a strange little mirror in his hand. The mirror emitted a strange divine light that landed on the ground. On the path ahead, a very subtle divine imprint was placed. As long as we follow the direction of this divine pattern, we will be able to find the correct way out of the maze. Wu Jie led the way while Yi Fei, Lu Qing, and Jiang Ting followed behind curiously. They were also observing the glowing runes on the ground. This was clearly a very special type of divine imprint. It was actually not carved on the ground of the maze, but on the restrictions of the maze. In this way, no matter how the area of the maze changed or how the restrictions were activated, these divine imprints would always point to the exit of the maze. What a wonderful idea! Xiao Chao, you have to learn a little. To be able to use the divine imprints so ingeniously, the person who solved the maze is definitely a monstrous genius. Yi Fei took the opportunity to educate Xiao Chao. Xiao Chao also looked at the divine imprints curiously. Then Xiao Chao waved his hand like a little adult, indicating that Xiao Chao did not need to learn these divine imprints. Yi Fei started to worry. Xiao Chao seemed to be a little arrogant. At this moment, Wu Jie, who was in front of them, punched the wall of the maze angrily. Which bastard actually destroyed the divine imprints? What's going on? Yi Fei and Lu Qing hurried over. Someone deliberately destroyed the divine imprints that led the way. Now, if we want to pass through the maze, we can only rely on ourselves. Jiang Ting's expression was also not good. Subconsciously, Yi Fei thought of Yang Ming, who had entered without saying a word. He immediately looked at Wu Jie. Wu Jie also nodded with a cold expression. These divine imprints were destroyed not long ago. There are still remnants of Xian energy on them. It should be that spoiled brat Yang Ming who did this. Brother Wu, I've implicated you this time. Yi Fei blamed himself. If Wu Jie had not helped him and damaged Yang Ming's reputation, Yang Ming would not have deliberately destroyed the divine imprints to take revenge on them. Sigh, it's useless to say this now. Without the divine imprints to guide the way, we can only rely on our own strength to solve this maze. Wu Jie's expression was ugly. He had already released his divine senses with Jiang Ting to explore the path ahead. However, this maze was a test set by the Emperor of the Ancients. Even if there was no danger, it was basically impossible to solve it in a short period of time. Unless someone can repair these divine imprints. This thought suddenly appeared in Yi Fei's mind. The more he thought about it, the more likely it seemed. He thought of how Xiao Chao had repaired the spiritual flower that had failed the spiritual attachment. Since Xiao Chao could repair the spiritual flower's divine imprints, he should be able to repair the divine imprints that were destroyed by Yang Ming. Thinking of this, Yi Fei immediately sent a voice transmission to Xiao Chao. Xiao Chao, do you have a way to repair these divine imprints? Yi. Xiao Chao waved his hand proudly, indicating that Xiao Chao did not need to personally repair these divine imprints. Then Xiao Chao pointed at the beautiful butterfly eye on his forehead. Yi Fei was very surprised. Xiao Chao, are you saying that you can use the spiritual eye of heaven and earth to find the correct way out of this maze? Xiao Chao did not say anything. He only raised his head and puffed out his chest, looking as if he wanted to be praised. Yi Fei's eyes lit up. He first praised Xiao Chao fiercely. Then, while Xiao Chao was bursting with joy, Yi Fei said to Wu Jie, Brother Wu, I have a way out of this maze. Follow behind me. What way? Wu Jie and Jiang Ting were very confused. Cough cough. Actually, I am also a high-level spirit augmentation master. Although Yang Ming deliberately destroyed the divine imprints, he did not completely destroy them. This means that the connection between the divine imprints is still there. As long as we rely on this connection, we can walk out of this maze. After saying this, Yi Fei deliberately released a gust of spiritual wind to show that he was indeed a genuine spirit augmentation master. Seeing Yi Fei's crooked and broken spiritual wind, Wu Jie and Jiang Ting did not have any confidence. They were even more worried. Wu Jie tried to persuade him tactfully. "Brother Yi, if you really can't do it, then don't force yourself. We really don't mean to blame you." Yi Fei's face immediately darkened. Even if his spirit augmentation technique was terrible, he could not say it so directly. Luckily, he still had Xiao Chao on him. As for spirit augmentation, Xiao Chao was definitely at the Grandmaster level. Chapter 2208. Capsizing in the gutter. Brother Yi, let's be frank. If we can't get out of this maze, I'll beat you up. Wu Jie had no confidence in Yi Fei's terrible spirit wind. "If you have the ability, then go find the way yourself." Yi Fei threw out these words and walked forward. Lu Qing also held back his laughter and followed behind. Wu Jie and Jiang Ting smiled bitterly. Even though they didn't have confidence in Yi Fei, it wasn't good for them to get separated. The two of them could only follow with fear. But soon, they realized something was different. Every time Yi Fei walked a certain distance, he would squat down and check the traces on the ground. And at that place there would definitely be a damaged divine imprint. Wu Jie's eyes widened. "Damn, Brother Yi, your spirit wind is so ugly, but you can actually find the location of the divine imprint. You can't be guessing, right? Why don't we make a bet? Every time I find a divine imprint, you'll give me 100 mystic veins. If I find the wrong one, I'll give you 1,000 mystic veins." Yi Fei said unhappily. He had a strong confidence in Xiao Chao. If he could take this chance to earn some mystic veins, that would be even better. "What? If I lose, I'll pay 10 times? Then let's say. Ting Ting, why did you step on me?" Wu Jie didn't finish his sentence and was already stepped on. He couldn't help but feel strange. Jiang Ting's face turned red. She ignored Wu Jie and nodded towards Yi Fei. "Yi Fei, we believe in you. Where do you want to go next?" Obviously, after seeing Yi Fei accurately find the location of the divine imprint, Jiang Ting had already started to believe that Yi Fei was indeed very skilled in the field of divine imprints. "Let's go that way." Yi Fei's unfathomable expression really stunned Wu Jie and Jiang Ting. Only Lu Qing vaguely guessed that Xiao Chao was helping. A strange expression appeared on his face. With Xiao Chao's spiritual eye of heaven and earth, even though Yang Ming's divine inscriptions had been destroyed, Yi Fei was still able to move forward at an extremely fast speed. He passed through long corridors, countless caves, and rows of stone walls. That speed was definitely faster than Wu Jie using the mirror and activating the divine runes to guide the way. Wu Jie even had the illusion that if Yi Fei were here, he would be able to walk out smoothly even with his eyes closed. "Wu Jie, the friend you made this time is very interesting. But is he really a rogue cultivator?" Jiang Ting looked at Yi Fei, who was strolling leisurely in front of her. Lu Qing, who was behind him, was also extraordinarily beautiful. She didn't look like a rogue cultivator at all. Instead, she gave people a pleasant feeling. Wu Jie smiled bitterly. "Actually, I don't understand Yi Fei either. There seems to be a mysterious aura around him. Perhaps there will be a place for him on the Earth Carnage Proclamation in the future." "Yi Fei can enter the Earth Carnage Proclamation?" Jiang Ting was very surprised. She knew how high Wu Jie's standards were. There were very few people who could make Wu Jie give such an evaluation. Not good, there are people in front. Just as Wu Jie and Jiang Ting felt that Yi Fei had become mysterious, Yi Fei, who was walking proudly in front, had a change in expression. Perhaps they were walking too fast. Unknowingly, they had caught up with a group of people in front. And this group of people happened to be Yang Ming and the others from Yin Yang Palace. At this moment, Yang Ming was squatting on the ground, using his profound energy to destroy a divine rune that they had just activated. As the maze of the ancient emperor's seal was not dangerous and was only used to trap people, and the guiding divine runes along the way were all destroyed, these people from Yin Yang Palace did not expect that there would be people chasing after them. Seeing Yang Ming's actions, Wu Jie was enraged on the spot. It is indeed this spoiled brat who is scheming against us. I will go up now and beat the shit out of him. Wu Jie's words were too unrestrained. Hearing this, Jiang Ting and Lu Qing's faces turned slightly red. Yi Fei, on the other hand, found it pleasing to the ear. However, he still stopped Wu Jie and said, "It is too degrading for us to deal with such a despicable person. Moreover, it will take up too much time. Follow me, I have a way to deal with Yang Ming. As the saying goes, those who scheme against others will always be in the wrong." "Brother Yi, those words of yours are making my hair stand on end." Wu Jie suddenly looked at Yi Fei with some sympathy. Obviously, Yi Fei was not someone to be trifled with. Jiang Ting and Lu Qing were also very curious as to why Yi Fei would deal with Yang Ming. Yi Fei did not say anything. He only led them quietly in another direction of the maze. That direction was a dead end. Ordinary warriors would be trapped inside if they fell into it. However, Yi Fei was different. With Xiao Chao's eye of heaven and earth, he could find the exact location of the divine runes at any time. Taking advantage of the fact that Yang Ming was still destroying the first divine rune, Yi Fei cleverly led Wu Jie and the others to take a longer route and arrived in front of the second guiding divine rune. Without saying anything, Yi Fei completely destroyed this divine rune. Then, without stopping, he rushed towards the third, and fourth divine runes. This way, even if Yang Ming was lucky enough to find the second divine rune, Yi Fei did not believe that Yang Ming would be so lucky as to find the third and fourth divine runes consecutively. Seeing Yi Fei's actions, Wu Jie's eyelids twitched violently. He secretly said to Jiang Ting, "Luckily, we are friends and not enemies with Brother Yi. Yang Ming really doesn't know that he has failed miserably this time." Thinking of the predicament that Yang Ming was about to face, Jiang Ting and Lu Qing could not help but burst into laughter. On the other side, the people of Yin Yang Palace did not know that they had failed miserably. Seeing Yang Ming destroy another guiding divine rune, the disciples of Yin Yang Palace, who were already prepared, started to flatter him. "Senior brother is wise and mighty. Didn't Wu Jie rely on his 7th grade bloodline to humiliate senior brother? This time, senior brother used a little trick to make him beg for death. Scram! Don't talk nonsense if you don't know how to speak. That Wu Jie is nothing. Senior brother was just retreating in order to advance. He just did not want to waste time with Wu Jie. Humph, it's a pity that we couldn't take down that bastard from the heavenly palace of despair and avenge senior brother Chun and the others." Hearing someone mention Yi Fei, Yang Ming stood up and anger appeared on his cold face. Although he had ruthlessly tricked Wu Jie by destroying the divine runes, and also cut off Wu Jie's opportunity to fight for the opportunity to become the Lord of Heaven, he was still humiliated by Wu Jie in front of everyone. This caused a trace of killing intent to appear on Yang Ming's cold face. "Just you wait. When I obtain the recognition of the ancient emperor's seal and break through to become the Lord of Heaven, even if Wu Jie is protecting me, I will personally take down this bastard. Let's go. Hurry up and leave this maze." Yang Ming was in high spirits. He even started to think about breaking through to become the Lord of Heaven, killing Yi Fei and suppressing Wu Jie. However, at this moment, the expression of the disciple in charge of finding the guiding divine runes changed drastically. "Senior brother, this is bad. The guiding divine runes in front of us have suddenly disappeared." "How could it disappear? We saw it just now." That person's words caused an uproar among the other disciples of the Yin Yang Palace. Yang Ming's cold expression also changed drastically. He hurriedly rushed towards the direction where he had found the guiding divine runes. Then, Yang Ming's expression changed drastically. He was so angry that he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. They had destroyed the divine runes behind them and cut off Wu Jie and Yi Fei's path. However, in front of them, someone had used the same method to cut off their path. Which bastard did such a wicked thing? The disciples of the Yin Yang Palace were so angry that their lungs were about to explode. Chapter 2209. Grand Imperial Hall, Senior Brother, what should we do now? The disciples of Yin Yang Palace panicked. Their path ahead was cut off, which meant that they had to redo their calculations to find the correct path out of the maze. However, that would definitely take up a lot of time. By the time they walked out of the maze, it would have been too late, not to mention obtaining the recognition of the ancient imperial seal. It would have been better if he hadn't said that. When that disciple mentioned it, Yang Ming's face turned red and his veins popped out. He didn't feel anything when they cut off the path of others, but now that it was his turn to be cut off, Yang Ming was so angry that he had the urge to kill. Which faction entered before us? Yang Ming asked, suppressing his anger. I think it's Yao Lei from the Royal Soldier Mountain. Senior Brother, do you suspect that the Royal Soldier Mountain cut off our path? A disciple of Yin Yang Palace was shocked. But we didn't have any conflicts with the Royal Soldier Mountain. Humph, we didn't have any conflicts, but only 5 people can obtain the recognition of the ancient imperial seal. That's enough for that boorish Yao Lei to do such a despicable thing. He cut off our path and got rid of his competitors in advance. Very good. Yao Lei, just you wait. Yin Yang Palace isn't to be trifled with. I'll definitely get my revenge. Yang Ming's cold gaze was so angry that it seemed to emit sparks. Yi Fei would never have thought that he only wanted to teach Yang Ming a lesson, but in the end, it was Yao Lei of the Royal Soldier Mountain who became the scapegoat for no reason. With the help of Xiao Chao's spiritual eye of heaven and earth, Yi Fei quickly walked out of the maze by following the markings left behind along the way. Behind the labyrinth was a huge palace. There were 3 large words on it: Grand Imperial Hall. Yi Fei, this is the last stage to obtain the recognition of the ancient imperial seal. As long as we pass this stage, we can enter the real heavenly pool and obtain the baptism of the ancient imperial seal. Wu Jie looked excited. He led Jiang Ting into Supreme Emperor Heaven, followed by Yi Fei and Lu Qing. They saw that the interior of the ancient palace was actually a huge arena. And the arena was already divided into 10 sections, filled with martial artists from the 10 great factions. Among them, Yi Fei also saw that Purple Moon was in the Divine King Palace. Unfortunately, Zhao Yu was not there. Yi Fei was inexplicably disappointed. When Purple Moon saw Yi Fei walking in with Wu Jie, her eyes widened. What's going on? The one who came in isn't Yang Ming, but this guy? Junior sister, do you know this person? Beside Ziyu stood a very handsome young man. He followed Ziyu's gaze and looked over. Suddenly, his eyes burned with passion as he stared at Lu Qing, unable to shift his gaze away. Lu Qing sensed this gaze and couldn't help but frown slightly. Then, he subconsciously moved closer to Yi Fei. It was this action that caused the young man's gaze to fall on Yi Fei. His expression immediately changed. There's no symbol. He's not from the 10 great factions? Yes, this young Master Yi seems to be from the Heavenly Palace of Despair. Purple Moon originally didn't want to reveal Yi Fei's identity, but seeing Lu Qing standing beside Yi Fei made her feel very uncomfortable. Subconsciously, she thought that Yi Fei secretly liked her. In the end, Yi Fei had another woman by his side in such a short period of time. Moreover, this woman was even more beautiful than her. In Ziyu's heart there was a trace of unwillingness. What? This person is actually a remnant of the Heavenly Palace of Despair? He still dares to sneak into the Heavenly Pool Ancient Land? The young man deliberately used an exaggerated voice to reveal Yi Fei's identity. This person's words quickly attracted the attention of the other factions. Many martialists looked at Yi Fei strangely. Wu Jie's expression also sank. "Brother Yi, do you have a grudge against the palace of the deities?" "No, I don't. I even helped Purple Moon back in Supreme Emperor Heaven." Yi Fei looked at Purple Moon suspiciously. Although Purple Moon regretted revealing Yi Fei's information, her pride as the daughter of an elder of the palace of the deities made her pull a long face. She wasn't willing to lower her head and apologize to Yi Fei, a martialist without any status. Therefore, she turned her face to the side and didn't look at Yi Fei anymore. The other factions were shocked, but most of them didn't make a move. Obviously, they were wary of Wu Jie, who was standing beside Yi Fei. But there were also some people who didn't care about Wu Jie. A dozen black-clothed swordsmen walked out from the crowd. The leader had a feminine face that didn't lose to a woman. He held his sword and said coldly, "According to the rules of the Supreme Emperor Heaven, only those who have the permission of the 10 major factions can enter. Since this person is a remnant of the Heavenly Palace of Despair, he doesn't have the qualifications to stay here. I think this elimination battle will start with him." "All right. Those who can enter the Grand Imperial Hall can't exceed 50 people, and only 5 people can enter the Heavenly Pool. Those who don't have the qualifications must be cleared out." A young man wearing a golden robe walked out from the crowd. This person's face was cold, and his skin was shining with a metallic light. Wu Jie's expression suddenly changed. "Zhan Feng of the Battle King Palace? I didn't expect you to come to the Heavenly Pool Ancient Land too. Wu Jie of the Merak Palace, I've heard of you. You're very strong, but you're not as strong as me. This time, my Battle King Palace will take all the spots in the Heavenly Pool. If you know what's good for you, leave now." Zhan Feng's words were extremely domineering. He actually wanted to take all 5 spots for himself. These words completely infuriated the rest of the forces. The young man beside Ziyu sneered and said, "Battle King Palace, what a big tone. I'm Su Mu, I'm here to challenge you." "You can't do it. Your Divine King Palace can come together. I've waited for so long for 50 people to arrive. I don't have the patience to waste my time with you." Zhan Feng's voice was filled with absolute dominance. Following his words, the cultivators of the Battle King Palace took a step forward. Moreover, the number of people from the Battle King Palace was exactly 5, which showed Zhan Feng's strong determination to take all 5 spots. The arrogance of the Battle King Palace didn't only infuriate the Godly King's Palace, it also infuriated another group. A man wearing heavy armor and holding an axe said coldly, "Zhan Feng, you're really arrogant. I'm Yao Lei from the Battle King Mountain. I'm here to challenge you. As much as you want. Then your Battle King Mountain and Divine King Palace can come together." Zhan Feng's tone became more and more arrogant. His arrogant attitude completely angered Su Mu and Yao Lei. Both of them roared and led their respective factions to attack Zhan Feng. Following the sudden confrontation between these 3 factions, the other factions also took action. Some of them fought each other, and some of them directly attacked Wu Jie. After all, Wu Jie's Merak Palace only had 2 people, Wu Jie and Jiang Ting. They had the least number of people, so they were the most likely to be besieged. On the other hand, no one from Yi Fei's side launched an attack. That was because before these people started attacking, Yi Fei's group had already started attacking. Chapter 22:10. The Might of the Heavy Sword. The 10 great forces all used swords. The identities of these cultivators were also on the verge of being revealed. "Are you from Sword Palace? May I ask?" Yi Fei was very polite. Because of his relationship with the 9 Heavens Sword Master, he was relatively close to Sword Palace. Even though these people surrounded him and showed obvious hostility, Yi Fei still wanted to avoid conflict with them. But in the eyes of these people, his kindness was a sign of weakness and fear of Sword Palace. These Sword Palace disciples looked at Yi Fei with disdain. Our names are not for a small fry like you to know. Now, do you want to scram or do you want us to help you? Of course, this female companion beside you is an exception. She must stay. We also have some things that we need to ask her. Although they said they were asking questions, the fiery eyes that they looked at Lu Qing revealed their dirty intentions. Lu Qing's expression immediately turned cold. As a former goddess, although Lu Qing was quiet, she was not the kind of person who would remain silent after being bullied. Thunder clearly appeared around her body. At this time, Yi Fei's hand stopped her. Leave this to me. You go over to Jiang Ting and protect her. Then you be careful. Lu Qing nodded. She understood that Yi Fei wanted to protect her. She couldn't help but smile. And this smile caused the leading Sword Palace disciple to reveal a crazed look of jealousy. I hate women who are prettier than me the most. You deal with him. Leave that woman to me. Brat, since you are so stubborn, then you will be destroyed together with the heavenly palace of despair. The remaining dozen or so Sword Palace disciples attacked Yi Fei at the same time. They were the ones that had entered the Grand Imperial Hall with the most people. When they saw Yi Fei being surrounded by more than a dozen people, Jiang Ting secretly broke out in a cold sweat. However, Jiang Ting was unable to make a move. Firstly, her own strength was not high. Secondly, Wu Jie was currently facing the combined attacks of several powerful martial artists. His situation was even more dangerous than Yi Fei's. At this moment, not only did Lu Qing not help Yi Fei, she even walked over. This made Jiang Ting very surprised. Sister Lu Qing, aren't you going to help Yi Fei? If I go over, I will only become a burden to him. Plus, if you don't have anyone to protect you, I'm afraid some people will use you to threaten Wu Jie. Lu Qing was smart. Even though Yi Fei didn't say it, she figured out the reason why Yi Fei wanted her to come over. Just as Lu Qing walked over, some of the forces that were besieging Wu Jie finally lost their patience and rushed towards Jiang Ting. They planned to capture Jiang Ting first and then force Wu Jie to retreat. At this moment, the battle between Yi Fei and the Sword Palace had completely erupted. Ignoring the other Sword Palace disciples, Yi Fei raised his dark steel heavy sword and swung it at the leader when he saw that the leader wanted to target Lu Qing. That person didn't even look at him. A sword beam shot out like a flood dragon emerging from the sea. It roared as it charged towards Yi Fei. Humph, you dare to use your sword in front of my Sword Palace. You scum, how unwise of you. Pung! Before the flood dragon's sword light could be completed, Yi Fei's heavy sword had already beheaded the flood dragon in an instant. The terrifying sword light also turned into scattered streams of light. Is the Sword Palace's sword very strong? It's only SOSO. Yi Fei raised his sword and pointed it at the demonic youth's throat. Two terrifying sword glows flashed across the demonic youth's eyes. Then, the sword glows shot out like two rays of divine light, piercing towards Yi Fei's mind. Yi Fei's eyes widened at this moment. A mysterious Taiji 8 trigrams pattern suddenly appeared in his eyes. Then, these patterns suddenly turned into sword beams and collided with the youth's sword beams. Boundless sword power was emitted. Kill. The rest of the Sword Palace disciples took advantage of Yi Fei's attack to attack. Sword beams filled the air and suddenly stabbed towards Yi Fei's vital points. Yi Fei suddenly sighed and said with great disappointment, I have always had a good impression of the Sword Palace. It looks like it was my wishful thinking. A bunch of mentally broken swordsmen. You are not worthy of using swords. Get lost. While he was fighting with the demonic youth, a majestic power of laws suddenly appeared on Yi Fei's body. Then, a law-divine dragon appeared from the void. Following Yi Fei's will, it charged towards the Sword Palace disciples. This scene instantly exceeded the expectations of the people from Sword Palace. In the end, it was a law-divine dragon, the number 1 law-demonic beast in Supreme Emperor Heaven. When it appeared, the disciples of Sword Palace were caught off guard and immediately coughed up blood as they retreated. they were heavily injured. Seeing that Yi Fei had begun to summon the Law Divine Dragon, Lu Qing suddenly shouted and summoned his own Law Divine Dragon as well. With the Law Divine Dragon circling around Lu Qing and Jiang Ting, it scared off many people who had designs on them. This scene was clearly seen by Ziyu. She almost couldn't believe her eyes. Yi Fei had actually summoned a Law Divine Dragon. The demonic youth was furious. No wonder you dared to fight for the heavenly pool. You actually defeated a Law Divine Dragon. Very good. You are qualified to force me to use my full strength. Soul-severing sword. Boom. An even more terrifying sword light slashed towards Yi Fei. It was the Sword Palace's ability, Soul-severing sword. A single slash could sever a person's soul and kill without leaving a trace. The demonic youth clearly had the intention to kill. Yi Fei's face was filled with anger. I have no intention of offending the Sword Palace, but since you are so overbearing, don't blame me for being ruthless. Before the sword light slashed towards him, Yi Fei took the initiative to charge forward. He used the Law Divine Dragon to block the many Sword Palace disciples. At the same time, he used the Darksteel Heavy Sword to activate the strongest evil sword law. This made Yi Fei's heavy sword even more terrifying. The moment the sword slashed out, a huge crack appeared in the void. A look of shock appeared on the demonic young man's face. Then, a look of rage appeared on his face. At the same time, the Absolute Soul Sword started to split apart. From 1 slash to 100 slashes, and from 100 slashes to 1,000 slashes. In the end, what appeared in front of Yi Fei were tens of thousands of divine sword lights. They pierced through the void and formed a deadly rain of swords. This was the true terror of the soul-severing sword. 1 slash to the soul, 10,000 swords to the heart. Yi Fei's face changed. But soon, he sneered, there are too many swords. Even if you split into 10,000 swords, or 100,000 swords, I will break them with 1 slash. Your sword will not be able to block my sword. The divine power and dark force in his body exploded together. Yi Fei's fate wheel appeared. The 12 runes on it, all the laws, lit up. Then, it formed a divine sword light that was as heavy as a mountain. It smashed forward. This shocking combination of powers caused the void to explode, forming a terrifying sword whirlpool. And in the whirlpool, the 10,000 divine swords that were thrusting towards Yi Fei were all smashed into pieces. The demonic youth who had attacked also had a face full of shock. How is this possible? You actually broke my absolute soul sword? Chapter 22:11 Chaotic Battle Kill. Mao Jianqing's anger turned into madness as a demonic light suddenly surfaced on his bewitching face. Soon after, the divine sword in his hand turned into boundless flames that crazily burned towards Yi Fei. Yi Fei only sneered and once again waved the black iron heavy sword in his hand like a dragon beast. As he brandished the heavy sword, it completely transformed into an indestructible black iron mountain. No matter how strong the sword light was or how complex the moves were, Yi Fei's answer was only one sword. He would use the heavy sword to break through the intricate moves. He would use absolute strength to crush the opponent's mystique and sword Dao. Bam! The profound iron-heavy sword solidly destroyed the boundless flames, turning them into scattered sword lights. At the same time, the enormous power of the heavy sword also cut a long bloody wound on Mao Jianqing's face, which was as large as a woman's. Mao Jianqing screamed in fear and no longer dared to fight with Yi Fei. Instead, he quickly retreated and took out a mirror to anxiously check the injuries on his face. "Senior brother, be careful." Suddenly, a disciple of the Sword Palace shouted a warning. Yi Fei did not pursue Mao Jianqing, but someone was unwilling to let Mao Jianqing go. After all, this was a chaotic battle, and anyone could become their opponent. Mao Jianqing was retreating towards the Divine King's palace. Seeing Mao Jianqing injured, Ziyu immediately charged towards him. She had just been defeated by Zhang Feng with a single punch, and was unwilling to give up. She simply charged towards Mao Jianqing, who had barged in. However, Mao Jianqing's reaction was unexpectedly strong. Before Ziyu could launch a sneak attack, all the pores on his body shot out endless sword light. These sword light not only forced Ziyu back, but also caused a trace of blood to flow from the corner of her mouth. "Stupid woman, get away from me, or I'll kill you!" Mao Jianqing's face was filled with disgust, and his murderous gaze was fixed on Yi Fei. However, Yi Fei and Mao Jianqing no longer had the chance to fight. Suddenly, a sharp axe appeared from the side of Yi Fei and viciously chopped at his body. Mao Jianqing also let out a miserable cry. Just as he was knocked back by Yi Fei and was injured. Suddenly, the Battle King Palace's Zhang Feng appeared behind him and punched him in the chest, causing Ziyu's face to turn pale. In order to fight for a spot this time, she had invited a very powerful senior brother from the Divine King Palace, as well as Yao Lei from the Martial King Mountain to besiege Zhang Feng. However, after a short moment of battle, that senior brother and Yao Lei were both defeated miserably, and Mao Jianqing from the Sword Palace was almost killed by a single punch. This left a huge shadow in Ziyu's heart. It was one thing for her to be unable to block Zhang Feng, but in the end, she couldn't even block Mao Jianqing. And just now, she saw with her own eyes that Yi Fei sent Mao Jianqing flying with a single strike. Didn't that mean that she was inferior to a nameless person like Yi Fei? Purple Moon's expression became even more gloomy. In this chaotic battle, her pride as the daughter of an elder from the Divine King Palace was completely shattered. Following Mao Jianqing's miserable defeat, the rest of the Sword Palace disciples lost their morale. They could no longer withstand the attacks of the nomological divine dragons. They either collapsed with heavy injuries or retreated in fear. Yi Fei did not pursue them. At this moment, he was fighting with all his strength against the youth who had ambushed him. Yi Fei's sword was fast and heavy. After all, there were only 5 spots to obtain the ancient imperial seal's recognition. If he wanted to fight for it, he absolutely could not be soft-hearted. Divine 5 Thunder's Clock. Not only did Yi Fei throw out the mystic iron heavy sword, he also activated the Divine 5 Lightning Bell. Countless lightning swords formed as they continuously bombarded the enemy. At the same time, Yi Fei's golden body shone brightly. In the next exchange of blows, he suddenly took the sharp edge of the battle axe head-on and exchanged blows with his opponent. Under the protection of the golden body, Yi Fei forcefully broke the youth's sternum without being injured. He fell to the ground and lost the ability to fight, and the martial artists who saw this scene all sucked in a breath of cold air. Zhang Feng also finally looked seriously at Yi Fei. "You're not bad. I originally thought that in this trip to the Heavenly Pool, only Wu Jie could be my opponent. Now there's another one." Boom! The ground suddenly trembled violently. Zhang Feng suddenly strode towards Yi Fei. This caused many people's expressions to change drastically. Zhang Feng actually chose a nameless person as his opponent? Ziyu's expression became more and more complicated. Suddenly, the chaotic crowd exploded. Wu Jie's body emitted a divine light that was like a star. He punched and kicked directly from the crowd towards Zhang Feng, who was walking towards him. Zhang Feng's arrogant gaze suddenly froze. If Yi Fei was considered an opponent, then Wu Jie was a strong opponent. Zhang Feng quickly made a choice. When he raised his fist and rushed towards Wu Jie, he stretched out his hand and pointed at Yi Fei. "You guys go and deal with him, dead or alive. Kill." Following Zhang Feng's order, the remaining 4 ancient martial art practitioners from the Warlord Palace all rushed towards Yi Fei with murderous intent. They were not deliberately targeting Yi Fei, but the fighting style of the Warlord Palace was very cold and ruthless. Even if they were facing forces of the same level, they would not show any mercy when it was time to attack. In the previous battle, people from the Divine King Palace and the Warlord Mountain had died at the hands of these 4 people. At the same time, these four people's fighting strength was very terrifying. Each of them had a divine weapon in their hand. They were sabers, shields, spears, and axes. As the axe-wielding youth had been severely injured by the heavy sword, the remaining three people developed a strong enmity towards Yi Fei. They rushed madly towards him. There were only 3 of them, but they gave off the aura of a magnificent army. Yi Fei's expression also became more serious. He did not retreat, but when the 3 people rushed over, he also took a step forward and ran madly. In the end, the 2 of them collided like 2 torrents. Dark force exploded in all directions, and their fighting spirit soared. A shield emitted a divine light and blocked Yi Fei's heavy sword attack. In an instant, a battle saber and a battle spear whizzed over at the same time. The spear pierced through the throat. Decapitation with a single slash. Yi Fei roared on the spot like a dragon's angry roar. The nomological laws on his body burned brightly, and his golden body shone brightly. He kicked up with both feet, using his flesh and blood to block the 2 people's battle saber and battle spear. At the same time, Yi Fei swung his heavy sword in the air. The divine inscriptions on the sword lit up, and suddenly, an attack from the Lord of Heaven erupted. With a single strike, the shield-wielding youth's shield caved in, and the bones in his hand were broken. The remaining blade-wielding and spear-wielding youth did not panic in the face of danger. They also lit up their divine inscriptions and launched another powerful attack at Yi Fei. Their saber and spear quickly slashed at Yi Fei's body. However, what made them despair was that their attacks only caused cracks to appear on Yi Fei's golden body of laws. They were unable to break it. Yi Fei also took advantage of this moment to strike again. The black iron was as heavy as a divine mountain. He suddenly slapped and pushed it forward. The 2 youths' sternum had already been broken, and they vomited blood as they fell to the ground. Clearly, in terms of close combat and physical defense, Yi Fei's golden body of laws was superior. If the 3 of them combined were like a magnificent army, then Yi Fei was like a demon god walking among them. He was unstoppable and undefeatable. Roar! Chapter 22:12. Stepping into the sky lake. Bam! 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 Figure after figure was sent flying. Even though the martialists present were all from the top 10 factions, there weren't many true geniuses among them. Wu Jie and Zhang Feng were both considered geniuses. The rest of the people paled in comparison to their brilliance. Even though they had initially been able to rely on their advantage in numbers to surround and attack Wu Jie, as Wu Jie charged out and Yi Fei, Lu Qing, and Jiang Ting joined forces, their advantage in numbers no longer existed. After all, there were still 2 powerful nomological dragons above Yi Fei and Lu Qing's heads. As the number 1 nomological demonic beasts in the Supreme Emperor Sky, the 2 summoned dragons possessed all the characteristics of nomological dragons. They were powerful, arrogant, cold, and crazy. Most importantly, the summoned nomological dragons were condensed from nomological laws and weren't real living beings. Therefore, Yi Fei didn't have any qualms about letting the 2 nomological dragons charge forward and trade injuries for injuries. He didn't have to worry that the 2 dragons would die as a result. This was also the most amazing aspect of summoning mystic powers. Faced with these 2 invincible summoned dragons, the martialists of these factions felt both anger and despair. Ziyu's face turned pale. When Yi Fei had ordered the dragons to attack, he hadn't treated the people from the Shun Monarch Palace differently. In the end, Ziyu had no choice but to lead the 2 remaining disciples of the Shun Monarch Palace to the edge of the battlefield in order to avoid the attacks of the dragons. However, as a result, the Shun Monarch Palace had been completely eliminated from this chaotic battle. Mao Jianqing's Sword Palace had also been eliminated. He had nearly been killed by Zhang Feng's punch. The other members of the Sword Palace had also been defeated by the dragons, making the Sword Palace the second faction to be eliminated. Mao Jianqing's handsome face had turned ashen. As he was being carried away, he glared at Yi Fei and shrieked indignantly, "What is your name? Where are you from?" "Yi Fei Qingzhou, Baiyun Nation." Yi Fei's expression was cold. He had no intention of hiding his identity. Of course, he had said all this on purpose for Ziyu to hear. He also hoped that Ziyu would bring news of him back to the Divine King Palace and bring it to Zhaoyu. A person like him is not from the Divine Prefecture, but from some unknown small country in Qingzhou? Ziyu was extremely shocked. For the first time, she felt slightly regretful. She should not have strained her relationship with Yi Fei. After all, Yi Fei had shown great kindness to the God King's palace from the very beginning, but she found Yi Fei's status too low, making him unworthy of her, so she purposefully gave him the cold shoulder. Yi Fei didn't know that his performance had a huge impact on Ziyue and the others. After eliminating the Divine King Palace and the Sword Palace, Yi Fei quickly walked towards Yao Lei of the Royal Soldier Mountain. "We admit defeat. The Royal Soldier Mountain will withdraw from this competition." Yao Lei's face was gloomy. First, he had been severely injured by Zhang Feng. Right now, he didn't have the confidence to fight Yi Fei again. Rather than being humiliated and defeated by a nobody like Yi Fei, he might as well just admit defeat. "All right, bring your people and withdraw. I will not make things difficult for you." Yi Fei nodded and didn't attack the Royal Soldier Mountain again. Instead, he lifted his foot and walked towards the next faction. That faction also admitted defeat without hesitation. Seeing the palace of the Divine King and the Sword Palace withdraw one after another, and the Royal Soldier Mountain admitting defeat on the spot, no one in the top 10 factions dared to underestimate Yi Fei anymore. Many people even regarded Yi Fei as a genius on the same level as Wu Jie and Zhang Feng. And such a genius was destined to enter the Earth Carnage ranking in the future and become an influential figure in the entire Divine Prefecture. With such thoughts in his heart, wherever Yi Fei passed, the other factions would naturally retreat at the mere sight of him. No one dared to obstruct Yi Fei's footsteps anymore. Zhang Feng also didn't expect such a situation. Originally, he had brought the 5 strongest young sovereigns from the Battle King Palace here to monopolize the 5 spots in the Heavenly Pool Ancient Land. In the end, other than him, the rest of them were all eliminated. Zhang Feng no longer dared to fight with Wu Jie. Instead, he quickly retreated. He first stared at Wu Jie, then fiercely swept his gaze towards Yi Fei. "You're very good. I didn't expect that a small place like the Qing province could produce someone like you. Have you considered joining the Battle King Palace?" No one expected that not only did Zhang Feng not bear a grudge against Yi Fei, he even proposed to recruit him at this moment. Yi Fei was shocked and couldn't help but be a little wary of Zhang Feng. There were many people who could accept it, but there were very few who could truly let it go. Zhang Feng truly lived up to his reputation as a genius. "I will consider joining the Battle King Palace, but now I want 2 spots in the Heavenly Pool Ancient Land. Does anyone have any objections?" Yi Fei held his black iron heavy sword and coldly swept his gaze across everyone present. Very few people dared to look Yi Fei in the eye. Mao Jianqing and Yao Lei smiled bitterly. They couldn't even utter a single word of objection. Zhang Feng's expression changed a few times. However, when he saw his 4 heavily injured subordinates and the covetous eyes of Yi Fei, Wu Jie, and the others, he wisely chose to remain silent. "Zhang Feng, if you don't say anything, I'll take it as a yes. Haha, today's fight was very satisfying. Since Yi Fei can take 2 spots, I, Wu Jie, will also take 2 spots. If anyone dares to object, feel free to fight." Wu Jie's heroic spirit was also aroused. When he saw that no one objected, he immediately stretched out his bare claw and gently held Jiang Ting's hand. In response to Wu Jie's display of affection, Yi Fei suddenly had the urge to beat him up. In the end, he decided that what he didn't see couldn't grieve over. He directly walked towards the light door at the front of the arena. That light door was the true entrance to the heavenly pool. After entering, one would be able to receive the baptism of the ancient emperor's origin. However, only 5 people were qualified to receive the recognition of the ancient emperor's seal. When she saw Yi Fei walk in with Lu Qing, Xiu's heart was filled with sadness and pain. She couldn't help but think that if she hadn't exposed Yi Fei's identity and treated Yi Fei so coldly, perhaps Yi Fei wouldn't have brought Lu Qing in, but her? Unfortunately, it was clearly too late to regret now. When he saw Yi Fei and the other 3 walk in, Zhang Feng's face was filled with unwillingness. However, he could only walk towards the light door alone and take the 5th spot. At the same time that Yi Fei walked into the heavenly pool inside the maze, Yang Ming's face was ashen as he pointed at the disciples of the Yin Yang Palace and cursed, "You bunch of good-for-nothings! If it weren't for you, I, Yang Ming, would have entered the Grand Imperial Hall long ago and obtained a spot to enter the heavenly pool. Great, now you've been circling around here for so long that you've even forgotten the way out of the maze. Do you want me to be trapped here with you until I die?" The more he cursed, the angrier he became. Yang Ming regretted destroying the divine inscriptions and even cutting off the way out of the maze. However, his hatred for Yao Lei from the royal soldier mountain grew stronger and stronger in his heart. Of course, Yang Ming would never have thought that the one who caused him to fail miserably was not the royal soldier mountain, but Yi Fei. Chapter 22:13. Breaking through the Lord of Heaven. At this moment, Yi Fei still did not know that not only did Yang Ming fail miserably, but he also hated the wrong target. After walking through the heavenly pool's door, there were 5 heavenly pools of different colors in front of him. The heavenly pools were filled with a huge amount of profound qi. Yi Fei only took a deep breath and felt as if he had cultivated for an entire day. He was greatly moved. No wonder the 10 major forces fought over the heavenly pool. The profound qi of heaven and earth here is actually so shocking. I feel that just by standing here and breathing in this profound qi, my bloodline seems to have started to strengthen. Lu Qing discovered another shocking fact. This news gave Yi Fei a shock, then he hung his head dejectedly. Perhaps it was because his bloodline was sealed, but he did not feel the feeling of his bloodline being activated. Wu Jie smiled faintly and explained, "This is the strength of the ancient emperor heavenly pool. Sister Lu Qing, you should have a 6th grade bloodline, right? When we enter the heavenly pool later, why don't you use the ancient emperor's source to stimulate your 6th grade bloodline? Perhaps you can raise it to the same 7th grade bloodline as me. Of course, it's the same for Tingting." As he spoke, Wu Jie held Jiang Ting's hand very gently, causing the latter's face to turn red, but she did not struggle free. As for Yi Fei and Lu Qing, they both had an impulse to beat someone up at the same time. However, from Wu Jie's words, Yi Fei still heard the implied meaning. Could it be that the heavenly pool's energy can only raise bloodlines below the 7th grade, but not those above the 7th grade? Wu Jie said huffily, "If the heavenly pool can raise bloodlines above grade 7, that bunch of fellows from the Earth Carnage Proclamation will be able to dominate this place to death. How can it still be our turn to fight for it here?" Hearing this, Yi Fei's expression could not help but turn grave. He had seen Wu Jie's strength with his own eyes. Even he did not have the confidence to defeat Wu Jie. At most, it would be a draw. Even Wu Jie, who had a 7th grade bloodline, called himself a small fish. Just how strong were those geniuses on the Divine Prefecture's Earth Carnage roll? A strong curiosity suddenly arose in Yi Fei's heart. Then, he lifted his feet and walked towards the nearest heavenly pool. Lu Qing, Wu Jie, and Jiang Ting were the same. What was even more amazing was that although the 5 heavenly ponds seemed to be placed side by side, they were actually 5 independent spaces. What existed in the heavenly ponds wasn't water, but an extremely powerful ancient emperor's origin. However, this origin was so powerful that even Xiao Chao's spiritual eye of heaven and earth couldn't analyze it. Therefore, in Yi Fei's eyes, these origins appeared in the form of a pool of water. This was also the origin of the heavenly pool Ancient Land. When he walked into the Sky Lake, the undying sword soul in Yi Fei's Sky Palace started to tremble violently. Clearly, the ancient emperor's origin was extremely attractive to the undying sword soul. There was no one around, and the heavenly lake was a relatively independent space. Yi Fei had nothing to worry about. Not only did he take out the indestructible sword token, he also released Xiao Chao and the dragon turtle. When Xiao Chao came out, he happily rolled around in the heavenly lake. On the other hand, the dragon turtle was full of energy, even though it was already stuffed to the brim by the hurricane law. The dragon turtle still took out a big black wok and filled it with water from the heavenly lake. Then, it squatted by the side and started to refine it. At the same time, Yi Fei also awakened the undying sword soul. His body formed a huge sword vortex. Boundless energy from the ancient emperor's origin turned into endless divine light and surged into his body. As the divine light surged into his body, Yi Fei's fate wheel suddenly emitted a dazzling golden light. This energy actually formed a strange light rain that floated above the Sky Palace. Yi Fei's heart skipped a beat. Suddenly, he activated the Lord of Heaven's scroll of the Despairing Path. Suddenly, the light rain miraculously gathered together and formed a gorgeous rainbow bridge above the Sky Palace. Yi Fei knew that this rainbow bridge was actually the Sky Bridge of the Lord of Heaven. Behind the Sky Bridge, Yi Fei could also vaguely sense a strange high platform. This was the Tao platform that only Tao lords would possess. Only by passing through this Tao platform would a martialist's consciousness be able to enter the celestial court and become a divine lord. Then, Yi Fei realized that the Sky Bridge he had formed was very illusory and unstable. He knew that this had to do with the fact that he had yet to comprehend the third level of nomological laws. The most important thing to breaking through the Lord of Heaven and forming a sky bridge was that one had to comprehend the third level of nomological laws. However, the third level of nomological laws was very difficult to comprehend. Even if Yi Fei obtained the Lord of Heaven's scroll of the Despairing Path, he couldn't guarantee that he would be able to comprehend it in a short period of time. This was also why he had to enter the Sky Lake. Yi Fei also believed that since the Sky Lake could help one break through the Lord of Heaven, it would definitely have a way to help him comprehend the third level of nomological laws. Therefore, Yi Fei wasn't in a hurry. He just allowed the undying sword soul to continue refining the ancient energy in the Sky Lake. This went on for a few days. Finally, just as Yi Fei was about to absorb all the energy in the Sky Lake's fate wheel rumbled. Boom! Above his Sky Palace, his fate wheel was rumbling. The Lightning Precept, Green Dragon Precept, Vermilion Bird Precept, Massacre Precept, Evil Sword Precept that he obtained from defeating the Evil Emperor Sword, and Divine Dragon Precept that he obtained from defeating the Divine Dragon, all of them were burning fiercely, forming a dazzling light of the precept. Then, these precepts started to devour and fuse with each other. So that's how it is. Level 3 nomological laws are actually the fusion of many Level 2 nomological laws. This is the key to comprehending Level 3 nomological laws, and also the trick to breaking through the Lord of Heaven. Yi Fei's eyes flashed with understanding. It was just that this trick sounded simple, but it was extremely difficult to put into practice. Just the fusion of laws was enough to stump most sovereigns. If not for the fact that Yi Fei happened to be in the heavenly pool and was constantly being baptized by the ancient emperor's origin energy, he would not have been able to fuse the laws he had comprehended in such a short period of time and form a new set of 3 laws. I just don't know what kind of laws I will be fusing with this time. Yi Fei was slightly nervous. Different laws had different effects. It would be fine if he had comprehended level 3 nomological laws for combat. However, if he had comprehended level 3 nomological laws for support, not only would it not increase his combat strength, but it would also affect his cultivation techniques in the future. In the Sky Palace, the speed of the fusion of the laws was even faster. Yi Fei also became extremely nervous. Unfortunately, the fusion of the laws was happening naturally under the stimulation of the ancient emperor's origin energy. Yi Fei could not control it at all. Yi Fei could only watch as all of his level 2 nomological laws gradually turned into a ray of chaotic divine light. Then, this ray of divine light changed continuously. After a period of time, the chaotic divine light finally became clear. Finally, the chaotic divine light gradually became clear. The blurry sky bridge also became like a real bridge connecting the heavenly palace and the fate wheel. On the emperor's throne, Yi Fei's soul suddenly stood up. He held the indestructible sword token in his hands, and stepped lightly as if he was ascending. He stepped over the fate wheel and onto the sky bridge. Chapter 22:14. Heaven and Earth Divine. At this moment, Yi Fei's divine soul was standing on the bridge, looking down at the abyss and the towering platform. His entire divine soul was exuding the majestic aura of the Lord of Heaven. Lord of Heaven, I've finally broken through to the Lord of Heaven. Yi Fei sensed the boundless aura that he was exuding. This aura was very similar to the heavenly Tao's aura that he often experienced in the earth realm. After breaking through to the Lord of Heaven, he had the ability to break through the barrier of the heaven realm and return to the earth realm. However, Yi Fei would not do that unless he had no other choice. After all, the Lord of Heaven had to pay a huge price to enter the earth realm. This price was not only in terms of Xian meridians but also in terms of one's cultivation. For example, if Yi Fei broke through the barrier and returned to the earth realm, he would be punished by the laws of heaven and earth. His cultivation level would drop, and he would be suppressed back to the heavenly venerate realm. Even if he returned to the heaven realm, he would have to cultivate from the heavenly venerate realm again. Only the heavenly Tao tree was an exception. After all, the heavenly Tao tree was a part of the laws of heaven and earth. Hence, it could enter the heaven realm and earth realm at will without being punished by the laws of heaven and earth. Ordinary warriors did not have this ability. Oh right, I've broken through to the Lord of Heaven. I wonder what 3 types of laws I've fused? Boom. After the joy of breaking through to the Heaven Monarch level, Yi Fei immediately released his triple-layered nomological laws. What surprised and delighted him was that the triple-layered nomological laws he had fused were actually Battle Dharma nomological laws. This was a special type of law. Usually, only certain races, such as the powerful battle demon of the primordial age, could comprehend it. Perhaps because the path of despair was born from the battle demon, the 3 types of laws that Yi Fei had comprehended were also battle demon laws. After breaking through to the Lord of Heaven from the path of despair, what I have is not as simple as the golden body of laws. Now, even if I don't take the dragon strength pill, I can still have the terrifying divine power of the battle demon. Bam! Yi Fei stood up and punched towards the void. His fist was dazzling, blooming like a purple gold star. It was filled with the tyrannical power of a war demon. The limit of the Lord of Heaven's godly strength is 1,000,000 kilograms. And the divine power I used to break through to the Lord of Heaven realm seems to have surpassed this limit. After feeling the power of his Lord of Heaven realm, Yi Fei was instantly filled with confidence. If there was still a gap between him and a genius from the divine continent like Wu Jie in the sovereign realm, the Lord of Heaven's scroll of the Path of Despair had completely made up for this gap. In fact, Yi Fei had the feeling that given his Lord of Heaven-level divine power and the might of his dark steel heavy sword, he could even fight early-stage Tao lords. But it's only a battle. It's almost impossible to win. Any random Downlord divine ability would be able to suppress his raw strength. If I want to defeat a Downlord, I need to have a Downlord's sacred art. Yi Fei shook his head helplessly. There was a saying in the heaven realm that every realm was a different heaven. When one was at a lower realm, this difference wasn't very obvious. However, when one reached the heavenly monarch realm and the Dao monarch realm, it was a huge divide. The difference between a heavenly Dao and a Dao Lord was like heaven and earth. As for a Dao Lord and a divine Lord, the difference was even greater. By the way, I've been cultivating for so long. I wonder how Xiao Chao is doing. After sorting out his emotions, Yi Fei looked at Xiao Chao and the dragon turtle. In the end, Yi Fei was shocked when he saw that Xiao Chao wasn't sleeping in. Instead, he was cultivating seriously. As if sensing Yi Fei's gaze, Xiao Chao quickly opened his eyes and ran over. He even spun a few times on the spot with a look of anticipation. Yi Fei naturally understood Xiao Chao's anticipation. He immediately praised Xiao Chao. Xiao Chao was so happy that his little face turned red like an apple. Yi Fei was pleasantly surprised to see the changes in Xiao Chao. The spiritual eye of heaven and earth on Xiao Chao's forehead became even more magnificent. There were also strange patterns around it. It looked like a beautiful butterfly that was about to turn into a spirit and fly away. No, this isn't the spiritual eye of heaven and earth. It looks like the divine eye of heaven and earth. Xiao Chao, you've cultivated the divine eye of heaven and earth? Yi Fei was very surprised. Xiao Chao proudly raised his head and chest. Xiao Chao looked very hard-working and strong. After all, the heavenly tree once said that no matter how talented Xiao Chao was, he would still need a few years to cultivate the divine eye of heaven and earth. But now, Xiao Chao only used a few months to break through. Yi Fei could already imagine the heavenly tree's jaw dropping. Needless to say, this must be the effect of the heavenly lake. After praising Xiao Chao again, Yi Fei looked around curiously for the dragon turtle. He saw that the dragon turtle's entire body was soaking in the big black pot. Its chin was resting on the side of the pot and its 4 limbs were stretched out. It was moving up and down in the pot as if it was taking a bath. Maybe it was too comfortable. Suddenly, a big bubble came out of the dragon turtle's nostrils and floated into the sky like a balloon. Then, there was a thunderous snoring sound. Yi Fei's face froze. This stupid turtle. We're cultivating so hard, but it's sleeping so comfortably. Xiao Chao, drag it out and beat it up. Yayai. Xiao Chao also pretended to be very angry. He immediately took out a vine whip and hit the dragon turtle. Of course, Xiao Chao didn't hit it very hard, but it was enough to wake the dragon turtle up. Unfortunately, the dragon turtle was too fat. Not only was its shell hard, but it also had a lot of fat on its body. Xiao Cao's successful deity beating whip didn't wake the dragon tortoise up. Perhaps it felt uncomfortable sleeping on its stomach. At this time, the dragon tortoise was still in the black pot. It flipped its belly over and leaned its head against the side of the pot. It continued to snore thunderously, and all kinds of bubbles kept coming out of its nostrils. Xiao Chao's eyes widened. He didn't understand why the god-beating whip didn't work. Yi Fei's face twitched. He had no choice but to use his last resort. He shouted at the dragon turtle, "Big Black, get up and eat the magnetite." Boom! The snoring stopped abruptly. Before the dragon tortoise could even open its eyes, it had already rushed over. As it wagged its tail continuously, it habitually extended its black dipper. When they realized that there were no magnetite in the rice bowl, Yi Fei and Xiao Chao's expressions became very unfriendly. Only then did the dragon turtle finally wake up. While its face was ashen, it hurriedly spat out a dragon pearl. It was the poison dragon pearl refined by the dragon turtle. However, there was no dragon soul inside the poison dragon pearl. Instead, there was a very ferocious demon soul inside. Xiao Chao's eyes lit up when he saw this. Xiao Chao realized that the dragon balls spat out by the dragon turtle seemed to have become very beautiful. Yi Fei was also completely speechless. Is this even fair? Big Black, you broke through to the Dominator realm in your sleep. If Lin Feng and the others knew about this, they would chop you up and cook you. Hearing this, the dragon turtle's face turned even paler, and it hurriedly put away the shiny dragon pearl. However, seeing that the dragon turtle was able to break through to the ruler realm despite being as lazy as a pig, Yi Fei's breakthrough to Lu Qing, he also became more confident. If Lu Qing also breaks through to the Lord of Heaven, including me and the Lord of Heaven, Lin Feng will have 3 Lords of Heaven. They will be able to contend with the current Qingyun League for a while. Chapter 22:15. Lin Feng was destroyed. Rumble. Half a year's time was up. The 5 heavenly lakes shone with dazzling light at the same time. The first one to walk out was Zhan Feng. Ever since this genius from Warlord Palace had broken through to the Lord of Heaven, his battle intent had become even more intense. As soon as he came out, Zhan Feng stared at Yi Fei fiercely. What do you think? Not everyone is qualified to be invited by Warlord Palace. Thank you, but I haven't decided which force to join yet. Yi Fei shook his head. He was the lord of the spiritual world, and the spiritual world was the enemy of the 5 forces of the divine prefecture. He had to be very careful about joining a force. Originally, the Sword Palace was a good choice. However, when Yi Fei thought about what Mao Jianqing and the others had done, he no longer had a good impression of the Sword Palace. Zhan Feng didn't force Yi Fei anymore. He only nodded coldly. Then, with a thought, he rushed into the sky and disappeared from the heavenly lake. Yi Fei realized that the sky above the heavenly lake was the exit. However, this Zhan Feng is an interesting person. After watching Zhan Feng leave the heavenly lake, another heavenly lake shook violently. Wu Jie walked out of the heavenly lake with the might of the Lord of Heaven. Then Lu Qing walked out as well. Not only had she broken through to the Lord of Heaven, but her bloodline had also improved to the 7th grade. This made Lu Qing's every move filled with the might of her bloodline. However, when she saw Yi Fei, the might of her bloodline quickly disappeared. Lu Qing walked over and suddenly hugged Yi Fei. Just as Yi Fei was stunned, Lu Qing blushed and said, "Don't misunderstand. I'm just doing this to thank you for your help." She knew that without Yi Fei, she wouldn't have been able to enter Supreme Emperor Heaven, let alone enter the Heavenly Lake and improve her bloodline. Yi Fei heaved a sigh of relief. He smiled faintly and said, "If you treat me as a friend, then don't treat me like an outsider. Moreover, only when we become stronger can we better protect Lin Feng." Lin Feng. I wonder how Lin Feng is doing now that we've been out for so long. There's also Di Fan and the others. I wonder how they're doing in Supreme Emperor Heaven, Lu Qing lamented. Thinking of Lin Feng's many friends and relatives, as well as Di Fan and the others who were still training in Supreme Emperor Heaven, Yi Fei also felt a sense of longing. Now that the competition in the Heavenly Lake Ancient Land is over, we shouldn't stay here any longer. Brother Wu, we should take our leave. When Jiang Ting also came out of the Heavenly Lake to improve her bloodline and break through the Lord of Heaven, Yi Fei immediately walked over and said goodbye to Wu Jie. Wu Jie and Jiang Ting were a little surprised. You want to return to Qing Province? With your talent, you can definitely make a name for yourself in the Divine Continent. Yi Fei, to put it bluntly, Qing Province is just an insignificant pond compared to the Divine Continent. No matter how big the pond is, it can't raise a true divine dragon. Only the Divine Continent can break through to a higher realm. You should consider it carefully. Yi Fei sighed. I've considered it, but I still have some trouble in Qing Province that I need to go back to resolve. I will definitely come to the Divine Continent, but not now. Wu Jie, Jiang Ting, goodbye. With that, Yi Fei turned and left. Lu Qing also followed behind without a word. When the two of them passed through the sky of the heavenly lake and left the heavenly lake ancient land, Lu Qing asked curiously, "Yi Fei, I think Wu Jie is a good person. He's someone worth befriending. Why didn't you ask Wu Jie for help regarding Bai Yun Sir God?" Yi Fei smiled bitterly. "Because Wu Jie is worth befriending, I don't want to implicate him, and I don't want to owe him a favor. Otherwise, when we meet on the battlefield in the future, it will be difficult for me to make a move. After all, Wu Jie is from Jade Palace, and Jade Palace was one of the 10 major forces that destroyed the spirit realm." But Yi Fei didn't intend to tell Lu Qing about this. He just left the heavenly lake ancient land as fast as he could, and went to the place where he met up with Di Fan and others. Because he left in a hurry, Yi Fei didn't know that not long after he left, a war broke out in the heavenly lake ancient land. The cause of the war was very unbelievable. After Yao Lei took the disciples of King Soldier Mountain out of the maze, they were unexpectedly attacked by the disciples of Yin Yang Palace led by Yang Ming. What was even more surprising was that this fire lasted until the end. Many forces did not understand what the Jun King Mountain had done to the Yin Yang Palace. It actually made the disciples of the Yin Yang Palace go crazy. They simply hated the Jun King Mountain to the bone. Roar. In a valley somewhere in Supreme Emperor Heaven, the roar of a defeated demonic beast of law suddenly sounded. Yi Fei was very familiar with that demonic beast of law. It was the berserk demonic bear that escaped from Yang Ming's hands. But at this time, that demonic bear was beaten into a stream of light and fell into Zhao Qianjun's hands. Di Fan and Jiang Zhen were standing beside Zhao Qianjun. After half a year of training in Supreme Emperor Heaven, their auras had become stronger. Moreover, they had all broken through to late-stage ruler realm. They were only one step away from condensing the 3rd level of law and stepping into the realm of the Lord of Heaven. "Senior Brother Zhao, Di Fan, Senior Jiang, your cultivation has risen so quickly." Yi Fei flew over from afar and landed in the middle of the three. Di Fan's eyebrows twitched. "Lord of Heaven? To Lord of Heaven." Yi Fei smiled and pointed at Lu Qing behind him. Zhao Qianjun and Jiang Zhen's eyelids twitched violently. Di Fan's body emitted a strong fighting spirit. "In 1 year, I will catch up to all of you and then surpass all of you." This was how confident a natural saint was. This confidence made Yi Fei feel great pressure, but he didn't back down. Instead, he retorted, "All right, I'll give you 1 year." With that, Yi Fei took out the door of immortal essences and walked in first. Then Di Fan, Lu Qing, Zhao Qianjun, and Jiang Zhen all followed suit. In the end, only the unlucky disciple of Yin Yang Palace was left. He stood in place with a confused expression. He had been prepared to be killed, but he was completely ignored. They are really a bunch of weirdos. Perhaps Senior Brother Yang Ming made a mistake by targeting them. The disciple of Yin Yang Palace shook his head and sighed. Then, he left dejectedly. Yi Fei and the others used the door of immortal essences and quickly teleported back to Qingzhou from the Divine Land. Then, they returned to Lin Feng. However, the Lin Feng that appeared in front of them had already been destroyed. The huge rock that used to be inscribed with Lin Chen's words had disappeared. The mountain that used to bury Lin Gui had also been blasted into a huge pit. Around Lin Feng, there were traces of destruction everywhere. The herb field had been dug up, the mountain peak had been destroyed, and even the path down the mountain had been completely cut off. Someone had even used a tombstone to write the words, "Lin Feng was destroyed here." Yi Fei couldn't believe it. He had only stayed in Supreme Emperor Heaven for half a year, but Lin Feng had been destroyed to such an extent. Even Lin Chen's tombstone and Lin Gui's grave no longer existed. Chapter 22:16. Taking the initiative to Lin Feng. This was the home of the people from the Earth Realm. Now that their home had been destroyed, Yi Fei, Di Fan, and the rest were all enraged. Fortunately, only Lin Feng was destroyed, and the connection to the Grotto Heaven world was still there. Yi Fei immediately activated the connection and quickly entered the Grotto Heaven world with everyone else. The Grotto Heaven world was already packed with people. During this time, even more martial artists from the Earth realm had been brought up by the heavenly Tao tree, but no one dared to step out of the Grotto Heaven world. Seeing Yi Fei appear, Xia Jun and Luo Shi quickly went up to him. "Big brother, you're finally back. Tao Lord Meng Shi is severely injured." "What? Meng Shi is injured? What's going on? Why was Lin Feng destroyed?" Yi Fei was shocked. He knew about Meng Shi's abilities, especially since he had the ability to split himself. It was extremely difficult to capture and kill him. Now that even Meng Shi was severely injured, the severity of the problem was obvious. It was Tao Lord Qing Yun and Tao Lord Sky River. From afar, Fu Renjie walked over with demonic aura. Ever since he came to the heaven realm, he did not care about worldly affairs and focused on seclusion. After all, Fu Renjie was not born with a demonic body. Instead, he was created by the demonic humans. This also caused Fu Renjie to be unable to awaken the corresponding demonic blood. Not long ago, Lin Feng was attacked by the Qingyun Alliance and the Sky River royal family. Fu Renjie, who was greatly affected, finally awakened his demonic blood and broke through to the sovereign realm. It was also because of Fu Renjie's unexpected breakthrough that those who remained in Lin Feng could return to the Grotto Heaven world unscathed. Fatty Pang Bei and Yi Fei's only female disciple, Yi Xiaochan, had also broken through to the sovereign realm. Together with Yi Fei and the rest who had returned, Lin Feng was now considered a powerful force. However, compared to Meng Shi's injuries, Fu Renjie's breakthrough could not make up for Lin Feng's heavy losses. After a conversation, Yi Fei also learned the reason for Lin Feng's destruction. It turned out that not long after they left, they found out about the rise of Yi Fei in the Baiyu Nation and that even the Qingyun League could not suppress him. The Sky River royal family had finally decided to attack Yi Fei. Moreover, the one who came this time was not the ordinary Lord of Heaven, but the Sky River Tao Lord, who was rumored to have died a long time ago. Of course, strictly speaking, Sky River Tao Lord was indeed dead. This Tao Lord had actually refined his body into a half-human, half-corpse state. This made Sky River King very crazy. He knew that Lin Feng had the mysterious race of the Grotto Heaven behind him, so the crazy and ruthless Sky River King sent another 10,000-strong army of corpse soldiers to attack Lin Feng. He wanted to test Lin Feng's strength. It just so happened that Yi Fei and the others had all gone to the Supreme Emperor Heaven of the Divine Prefecture. Due to the extreme shortage of manpower, the Heavenly Path Tree had no choice but to open its Grotto Heaven again and send out the battle trance to prevent Lin Chen and Lin Gui's corpses from being refined by the imperial family of the Heavenly River. It enveloped the entire mountain peak. This was also the reason why Yi Fei saw that Lin Chen's and Lin Gui's tombstones were no longer there when he returned. They had been moved into the Grotto Heaven. However, Lin Chen and Lin Gui's tombstones were saved, but the Heavenly Path Tree had no choice but to expose the fact that the battle trance were unable to leave the Grotto Heaven. Old Man Qingyun and Sky River King, who realized that they had been fooled, were instantly enraged. They immediately led the Qingyun League's many rulers and Lord of Heaven to launch their most ferocious attack on Lin Feng. Although they did not dare to step into the spatial black fog and fight the battle trance personally, the two furious Tao Lords worked together to severely injure Soaring Serpent and completely destroy Lin Feng. Brother, that's the situation. Tao Lord Soaring Serpent isn't the only one injured. Even Lord of Heaven Guo almost died trying to protect us. Senior Heavenly Path Tree is doing its best to heal them, Yi Shanshan said worriedly in the end. After hearing this, Yi Fei was even more enraged. However, when he thought of the injured Soaring Serpent and Lord of Heaven Guo, he suppressed his anger. He gently rubbed Yi Shanshan's head and said, "It's fine as long as you're all fine. I'll go see Senior Heavenly Path Tree now. Yi Fei quickly entered the Spirit Immortal Clan's palace. Inside the palace, the Heavenly Path Tree's incarnation was mobilizing the dark force within the Grotto Heaven to help Soaring Serpent and Lord of Heaven Guo recover. Both of them were in bad shape. Soaring Serpent had lost half of his tail. There were bloody holes all over Lord of Heaven Guo's body, as well as a deep claw mark. They're in bad shape. Not only were the two juniors from Qinyun and Sky River vicious, they even set up a formation around Lin Feng to isolate the dark force of heaven and earth after destroying Lin Feng. For now, I can only ensure that they don't die, but I can't wake them up, the Heavenly Path Tree said gravely when he saw Yi Fei enter. Yi Fei's heart sank. Even though Soaring Serpent and Lord of Heaven Guo had been forced to submit, they had still made great contributions to Lin Feng. At this thought, Yi Fei's expression turned resolute. If I break the formation set up by the Qinyun Alliance, will I be able to help Soaring Serpent and Lord of Heaven Guo recover? You can. But you have to consider this carefully. Even though Qinyun and Sky River are afraid of my Divine Lord Aura and don't dare to attack you, they can order their subordinates, the Lord of Heaven, to join forces and kill you, the Heavenly Path Tree said in a low voice. He didn't want Yi Fei to take the risk. However, Yi Fei laughed when he heard this. My subordinates are on the verge of dying in order to protect my friends and family. How can I ignore their lives and disappoint them? Soaring Serpent, Lord of Heaven Guo, please wait for a moment. I'll be right back. Yi Fei didn't hesitate. He turned and strode out of the Grotto Heaven. Soaring Serpent and Lord of Heaven Guo clearly sensed his words. When they found out that Yi Fei was going to risk his life and leave the Grotto Heaven world to save them, Yin Qi couldn't help but feel a faint warmth in her heart. Outside the forest peak, the mountain peaks towered like rows of soldiers. They surrounded the entire forest peak and the Grotto Heaven. At the same time, they formed a vast isolation formation that completely cut off the Grotto Heaven world from absorbing heaven and earth mystic qi from the outside world. Without the heaven and earth mystic qi, the entire Grotto Heaven was actually a dead place. The people inside needed heaven and earth mystic qi to live and cultivate. Soaring Serpent and Lord of Heaven Guo needed even more heaven and earth mystic qi to recover from their injuries. Of course, if they didn't break the isolation formation outside, it would be empty talk. At this moment, on the main peak of the isolation formation, Gao Sickle stood complacently on the mountain peak. He looked down at Yi Fei, who had just walked out of the Grotto Heaven, with a lofty attitude. Demon Yi, after hiding for so long, you're finally willing to come out? Gao Sickle is here. Why don't you hurry up and fight? Gao Sickle's words were harsh. He was deliberately infuriating Yi Fei. As long as Yi Fei couldn't take the provocation and left the Grotto Heaven world's range, it would be Yi Fei's time of death. Yi Fei, you didn't expect us to meet again, did you? I said long ago that your body will definitely belong to me. Hee. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.